Okay, good evening, everybody. I know it's very late for starting tonight. A couple of reasons for that. I basically had some stuff to go through. I also needed. Hey, Sean Bean, great to see you. I always kind of filibuster at the start in hopes of getting people in, but you came right at the moment, so thanks for that. I think I'll jump into the codices rather than do my start, or my usual opening. But yeah, I did have a little bit of running around to do, which you know. Not the best scheduling for me. I know on Fridays I have a tendency to sort of start late anyway. I was also genuinely unsure about what I was going to be streaming tonight, and then I eventually settled on Mass Effect 2. One, because I like this game quite a bit, and I like it as much as I did when I first played it. I actually appreciate it a lot more as well, having now played the first one. I was oh.
Commander, we've done what we could for Garrus, but he took a bad hit. The doc's corrected with surgical procedures and some cybernetics. Best we can tell, he'll have full functionality, but...
Shepard?
Tough son of a bitch. Didn't think he'd be up yet.
Nobody would give me a mirror. How bad is it?
Hell, Garrus, you were always ugly. Slap some face paint on there and no one will even notice.
Oh, don't make me laugh. Damn it, my face is barely holding together as it is. Some women find facial scars attractive. Mind you, most of those women are Krogan. Frankly, I'm more worried about you. I've heard bad things about Cerberus these past few years.
That's why I'm glad you're here, Garrus. If I'm walking into hell, I want someone I trust at my side.
You realize this plan has me walking into hell, too. Just like old times. I'm fit for duty whenever you need me, Shepard. I'll settle in and see what I can do with the forward batteries.
I really like that writing. But yeah, so I dithered a little bit in terms of what I wanted to do. I sort of decided I liked Nighthawks a lot, so I don't want to consider it to be, a negative that I spent the time, covering that. But obviously there's a cost for me doing that, and that's just that comes in the form of a less time spent in Mass Effect 2. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to do it today. I did need to get a little bit of a walk in, just to sort of clear my head, and I definitely had a chat with somebody who I was
sure the collectors pay for taking him.
I was sort of long overdue to catch up with. So just kind of errands, chores, those sorts of things. But I did finally manage to get home. Had a couple technical problems, but we were able to do Mass Effect. So, I haven't 100% decided on what mission I'm going to do next, but I hope you don't mind this, Sean Bean. I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through the codices. Not all of them, but I want to make sure that I do a little bit of progress, because I know my tendency to put them off resulted in me missing a lot of them in Mass Effect 1, which is not the end of the world, because it turns out there's quite a bit of repetition with Mass Effect 2. But I'm going to spend a little bit of time doing that, and then we can move on to our next mission. Okay, so these are the ones that the game reads to me. Let me just take a quick look at how many. Oh my god, there's a lot. All right, let's do non-council ration.
In the early 2160s, the Alliance began aggressive colonization of worlds in the Skyllian Verge, much to the dismay of the Batarians, who had been developing the region for several decades. In 2171, the Batarians petitioned the Council to declare the Verge a zone of Batarian interest. The Council refused, however, declaring unsettled worlds in the region open to human colonization. In protest, the Batarians closed their Citadel embassy and severed official diplomatic relations with the Council, effectively becoming a rogue state. They instigated a proxy war in the Verge by funneling money and weapons to criminal organizations, urging them to strike at human colonies. Hostilities peaked with the Skillian Blitz of 2176, an attack on the human capital of Elysium by Batarian-funded pirates and slavers. In 2178, the Alliance retaliated with a crushing assault on the moon of Torfin, long used as a staging base by Batarian-backed criminals. In the aftermath, the Batarians retreated into their own systems and are now rarely seen in Citadel space. Living beyond the Omega-4 mass relay in the Terminus systems, the mysterious Collectors species is glimpsed so rarely as to be taken for a myth by most in galactic society. In reality, Collectors are human-sized insectoid bipeds and can resemble massive winged beetles. They are a terrifying force in the galaxy, responsible for the murder of hundreds of thousands. Collectors generate permanent stasis fields around themselves, creating nightmarish red-shifted energy fields. In battle, they hold position whenever possible, relying on their aggressive biotics and nearly limitless power. Several types of bipedal Collectors have been identified, including minions, defenders, zealots, assassins, and artillery operators. Acting together, Collectors have imprisoned entire cities in stasis. While no definite forensic accounting exists to explain the fate of those imprisoned, leading speculation is that victims are harvested for scientific experimentation and neurobiological repurposing.
Hello, the Eyes of Sin. We're just doing one batch of red codices, and then I'll probably do a batch of reading myself, and then we'll be going on to missions. It's wonderful to see you tonight. I know I sent you a message recently, but I don't know if you got a chance to see it. So I'll save it for after chat.
The Elcor are a Citadel species native to the high-gravity world Dakuna. They are massive creatures, standing on 4 muscular legs for increased stability. Elcor move slowly, an evolved response to an environment where a fall can be lethal. This has colored their psychology, making them deliberate and conservative. Elcor's speech is ponderous and monotone. Among themselves, scent, slight movements, and sub-vocalized infrasound convey shades of meaning that make a human smile seem as subtle as a fireworks display. Since their subtlety can lead to misunderstandings with other species, the Elcor often go out of their way to clarify when they are being sarcastic, amused, or angry. Dakuna's high gravity impedes mountain formation. Most of the world consists of flat, open plains, which prehistoric Elcor wandered across in small family bands. Modern Elcor still prefer open sky, and can become restless and uncomfortable on long starship journeys.
I really like the Elcor. I've always liked the Elcor.
The Geth are a humanoid race of networked AIs. They were created by the Quarians 300 years ago as tools of labor and war. When the Geth showed signs of self-evolution, the Quarians attempted to exterminate them. The Geth won the resulting war. This example has led to legal, systematic repression of artificial intelligences in galactic society. The Geth possess a unique distributed intelligence. An individual has rudimentary animal instincts, but as their numbers and proximity increase, the apparent intelligence of each individual improves. In groups, they can reason, analyze situations, and use tactics, as well as any organic race. Geth space is located at the trailing end of the Perseus Arm, beyond the lawless Terminus systems. The Perseus Veil, an obscuring dark nebula of opaque gas and dust, lies between their space and the Terminus systems. The Hanar are a Citadel species known for excessive politeness. They speak with scrupulous precision and take offense at improper language. Hanar that expect to deal with other species take special courses to help them unlearn their tendency to take offense at improper speech. All Hanar have 2 names. The face name is known to the world. The soul name is kept for use among close friends and relations. Hanar never refer to themselves in the first person in conversation with someone they know on a face name basis. To do so is considered egotistical, so instead they refer to themselves as this one, or the impersonal It. Their homeworld, Kaje, has 90% ocean cover and orbits an energetic white star, resulting in a permanent blanket of cloud. Due to the presence of Prothean ruins on the world, many Hanar worship them, and Hanar myths often speak of an elder race that civilized them by teaching them language.
As much as I prefer to read this stuff out, I can't really skip over it just because I find it... I like the details in this. I really like the creativity and the diversity that they have in all of the species. Even though I sort of know some of these stories, I always love hearing it.
The Krogan evolved in a hostile and vicious environment. Until the invention of gunpowder weapons, eaten by predators was still the #1 cause of Krogan fatalities. Afterwards, it was death by gunshot.
What an
When
opener.
the Solarians discovered them, the Krogan were a brutal, primitive species, struggling to survive a self-inflicted nuclear winter. The Solarians culturally uplifted them, teaching them to use and build modern technology, so they could serve as soldiers in the Rachni War. Liberated from the harsh conditions of their homeworld, the quick-breeding Krogan experienced an unprecedented population explosion. They began to colonize nearby worlds. Even though these worlds were already inhabited, the Krogan rebellions lasted nearly a century, only ending when the Turians unleashed the Genophage, a Solarian-developed bioweapon that crushed all Krogan resistance. The Genophage makes only 1 in 1,000 pregnancies viable, and today the Krogan are a slowly dying breed.
And yet it doesn't say, understandably, the Krogan harbor a grudge against all other species, especially the Turians.
Driven from their home system by the Geth nearly 3 centuries ago, most Quarians now live aboard the Migrant Fleet, a flotilla of 50,000 vessels ranging in size from passenger shuttles to mobile space stations. Home to 17 million Quarians, the flotilla understandably has scarce resources. Because of this, each Quarian must go on a rite of passage known as the Pilgrimage when they come of age. They leave the fleet and only return once they have found something of value they can bring back to their people. Other species tend to look down on the Quarians for creating the Geth, and for the negative impact their fleet has when it enters a system. This has led to many myths and rumors about the Quarians, including the belief that underneath their clothes and breathing masks, they are actually cybernetic creatures, a combination of organic and synthetic parts.
It's so interesting too to see some of the parallels in terms of real life groups. I'm pretty sure I have an idea about who the Quarians might be in the modern day.
A myth common to several cultures in the galaxy. Reapers were imagined to be space monsters who consumed entire stars. Archaeologists and mythologists attempting to uncover sources for such myths have yielded little, except interstellar religious themes of all-consuming devils common to primitive cultures. The Volus are a member species of the Citadel with their own embassy, but they are also a client race of the Turians. Centuries ago, they were voluntarily absorbed into the hierarchy, effectively trading their mercantile prowess for Turian military protection. Erun, their homeworld, lies far beyond the normal life zone of its star. However, the world has a high-pressure greenhouse atmosphere that traps enough heat to support an ammonia-based biochemistry. As a result, the Volus must wear pressure suits and breathers when dealing with other species, as conventional nitrogen-oxygen air mixtures are poisonous to them, and in the low-pressure atmospheres tolerable to most species, their flesh will actually split open. Volus culture is tribal, bartering lands and even people to gain status. This culture of exchange inclines them to economic pursuits. It was the Volus who authored the Unified Banking Act, and they continue to monitor and balance the Citadel economy.
One more.
Although they resemble a mammal-reptile cross, the Vorcha have no terrestrial analog. They are humanoid in form, but Vorcha have clusters of non-differentiated neoblast cells, like those of Earth's planarian worms. Damaged Vorcha cells mature into specialized structures to alleviate injury or stress. Transformations include thicker skin following injury, lung adaptation for barely breathable atmospheres, and stronger cardioskeletal muscle under high gravity. Skull capacity and brain size do not change, and Vorcha rarely make more than one somatic overhaul. Vorcha assault each other frequently, causing their young to gain strength, intelligence, and resilience. As a result, Vorcha see inflicting and receiving pain as normal communication. Few Vorcha study professions, in part because their average life expectancy is only 20 years. Because Vorcha can eat and breathe nearly anything, they can live almost anywhere. But racism prevents them from integrating into most societies that dismiss them as vermin. They have few employment options beyond Krogan mercenary bands.
Again, that's another really interesting, especially because like I don't know that much about the Vorcha, but that's another really interesting biography. Okay, so that's right, because I've been doing each council race in groups, because there's like 4 or 5 for each one. So on to the Turians, which should be the last one, although there may also be an entry for humanity as well. Turian biology. The Turian homeworld, Palaven, has a metal-poor core generating a weak magnetic field and allowing more solar radiation into the atmosphere. To deal with this, most forms of life on Palaven evolved some form of metallic exoskeleton to protect themselves. The reflective plate-like skin makes Turians less susceptible to long-term low-level radiation exposure, but they do not possess any sort of natural armor. A Turian's thick skin does not stop projectiles and directed energy bolts. Although life on Palaven is carbon-based and oxygen-breathing, it is built on dextroamino acids. This places the Turians in a distinct minority on the galactic stage. The Quarians are the only other sapient dextroprotein race. The food of humans, Asari, or Solarians, who evolved in levoamino acid-based biospheres, will at best pass through Turian systems without providing any nutrition. At worst, it will trigger an allergic reaction that can be fatal if not immediately treated. Turian culture. While Turians are individuals with personal desires, their instinct is to equate the self with the group and set aside personal desires for the good of all. Turians are taught to have a strong sense of personal accountability, the Turian honor that other races find so remarkable. Turians are taught to own every decision they make, good or ill. The worst sin they can make in the eyes of their people is to lie about their own actions. Turians who murder will try to get away with it, but if directly questioned, most will confess to the crime. Turians have a strong inclination toward public service and self-sacrifice, so they tend to be poor entrepreneurs. To compensate, they accepted the mercantile Volus as a client race, offering protection in exchange for their fiscal expertise. The Turian military is the center of their society. It is not just an armed force, it is an all-encompassing public works organization. The military police are also the civic police. The fire brigades serve the civilian population as well as military facilities. The Corps of Engineers builds and maintains spaceports, schools, water purification plants, and power stations. The Merchant Marine ensures that all worlds get needed resources. Sean Bean says, do you take in all the information when you read it aloud? I always struggle with that. It depends. One of the things that I do tend to learn, Sean Bean, is when I try to rush through some dialogue, I will sometimes miss it. But I tend to notice, because I do make an effort to pronounce words correctly, even if I don't know what they mean at the time, like, but they're unfamiliar ones. So, for instance, I've never heard of dextroamino acid before. My tendency to try and understand what's being said and to say it correctly tends to drive me to have a little more comprehension. And this is a challenge for me because I tend to speak quite quickly in a lot of cases. But in the case of reading aloud, I do tend to pick up on the meaning. But I do also notice a lot of times I'm pretty, like, I feel a little bit of pressure to get on with it, and when I cave into that pressure, I sometimes lose in the comprehension. Turian government. The Turian government is a hierarchical meritocracy. While it has great potential for misuse, this is tempered by the civic duty and personal responsibility Turians learn in childhood. Turians have 27 citizenship tiers, beginning with civilians, client races, and children. The initial period of military service is the second tier. Formal citizenship is conferred at the third tier after boot camp. For client races, citizenship is granted after the individual musters out. Higher-ranked citizens are expected to lead and protect subordinates. Lower-ranked citizens are expected to obey and support superiors. Promotion to another tier of citizen is based on the personal assessments of one's superiors and co-rankers. Throughout their lives, Turians ascend to higher tiers and are occasionally demoted to lower ones. The stigma associated with demotion lies not in the individual, but on those who promoted him when he wasn't ready for additional responsibility. This curbs the tendency to promote individuals into positions beyond their capabilities. Ah, that's a really smart idea. Settling into a role and rank is not considered stagnation. Turians value in knowing one's own limitations more than being ambitious. At the top are the Primarchs, who each rule a colonization cluster. The Primarchs vote on matters of national import. They otherwise maintain a hands-off policy, trusting the citizens on each level below them to do their jobs competently. Turians enjoy broad freedoms. So long as one completes his duties and does not prevent others from completing theirs, nothing is forbidden. For example, there are no laws against recreational drug use, but if someone is unable to complete his duties due to drug use, his superiors step in. Judicial proceedings are interventions. Peers express their concern and try to convince the offender to change. If rehabilitation fails, Turians have no qualms about sentencing dangerous individuals to a life at hard labor for the state, to a life of hard labor at the state. And try to convince... express their concern and try and convince... okay, so this seems to be some kind of a... It just seems to be duplicating this bit here. Let's see if that's... Nope, okay, it just doubles up. So, try to convince the offender to change. Period. Turian military doctrine. Although they lack the brutality of the Krogan, the skill of the Asari, or the virtuosity of humans, the Turian military has formidable discipline. Officers and NCOs are lifers with years of field experience. Enlisted personnel are thoroughly trained and stay calm under fire. Turian units don't break. Even if their entire line collapses, they fall back in order, setting ambushes as they go. A popular saying holds, you will only see a Turian's back once he's dead. Boot camp begins on the 15th birthday. Soldiers receive a year of training before being assigned to a field unit. Officers train for even longer. Most serve until the age of 30, at which point they become part of the reserves. Even if they suffer injuries preventing frontline service, most do support work behind the lines. Biotics are uncommon. While admired for their exacting skills, biotics' motives are not always fully trusted by the common soldier. The Turians prefer to assign their biotics to specialist teams called cabals. Command and control is decentralized and flexible. Individual squads can call for artillery and air support. They make extensive use of combat drones for light duties and practice combined arms. Infantry operates with armor, supported by overhead gunships. Strategically, they are methodical and patient and dislike risky operations. Tradition is important. Each legion has a full-time staff of historians who chronicle its battle honors in detail. The oldest have records dating back to the Turian Iron Age. If a legion is destroyed in battle, it is reconstituted rather than replaced. The Turian recruit auxiliary units from conquered or absorbed minor races. Auxiliaries are generally light infantry or armored cavalry units that screen and support the main Turian formations. At the conclusion of their service in the auxiliaries, recruits are granted Turian citizenship. It's very Roman. Turian religion. Although Turians have a strict moral code, their belief in individual responsibility means that the concepts of good and evil are simply the individual's choice between egotism and altruism in any given decision. They have no concept of good deities that encourage noble behavior or evil ones that tempt individuals to misdeeds. Turians believe that groups and areas have spirits that transcend the individual. For example, a military unit would be considered to have a literal spirit that embodies the honor and courage it has displayed. A city spirit reflects the accomplishments and industry of its residents. An ancient tree spirit reflects the beauty and tranquility of the area it grows within. These spirits are neither good nor evil, nor are they appealed to for intercession. Turians do not believe spirits can affect the world, but spirits can inspire the living. Prayers and rituals allow an individual to converse with a spirit for guidance or inspiration. For example, a Turian who finds his loyalty tested may appeal to the spirit of his unit, hoping to reconnect with the pride and honor of that group. A Turian who wishes to create a work of art may attempt to connect with the spirit of a beautiful location. Very platonic. Turians enjoy absolute freedom of religion and can practice whatever appeals to them so long as it does not impede anyone's ability to perform their duties. There are many practitioners of the Ciarist philosophy. Since opening dialogue with the Human Systems Alliance, some Turians have embraced Confucianism and Zen Buddhism. And finally, the Unification War. At about the time the Salarians and the Asari were forming the Council, the Turians were embroiled in a bitter civil war. The Unification War, as it was later named, began with hostilities between the colonies furthest from the Turian homeworld, Palaven. These colonies were run by local chieftains, and many who distanced themselves from the hierarchy. Without the galvanizing influence of the government, the colonies became increasingly isolated and xenophobic. Colonists began wearing emblems or facial markings to differentiate themselves from members of other colonies, and open hostilities became common. When war finally broke out, the hierarchy maintained strict diplomacy and refused to get involved. After several years of fighting, less than a dozen factions remained, and the hierarchy finally intervened. By that time, the chieftains were too weak to resist. They were forced to put an end to fighting and renew their allegiance to the hierarchy. Though peace was restored, it took several decades for the animosity between colonists to fade completely. To this day, most Turians still wear facial markings of their home colonies. As a point of interest, the Turian term barefaced refers to one who is beguiling or not to be trusted. It is also a slang term for politicians. And that is your lore for the day, so we'll do just a quick batch of reading mail and catching up on everyone. So, unread messages. Things are quiet again from the Omega Clinic desk. Commander, I wanted to thank you again for saving me from those Batarians. I thought I'd seen the worst of people's anger and fear at Dr. Solus's clinic. I had no idea how much anger his work was keeping in check, how bad it really was. If not for you, I'd be dead. Thank you. The clinic is going well. You got rid of most of the plague, and I've been able to handle the rest without too much trouble. The Blue Suns keep offering to take over security here. I keep the mechs powered on. I won't make the same mistake twice. Thanks, Daniel. Glad I didn't sign up. From John Whitson. Hey, Arya gave me this address. I think I met you in Afterlife on Omega. You stopped me from joining up with those mercs who were trying to take out Archangel. Man, I was so pissed at you. I got blind drunk that night, and it was a few days later before I got it together enough to check the news vids and saw that almost all those mercs had gotten killed by Archangel. I don't know who you are or if you got out of there alive yourself, but thanks. I felt really stupid when I heard about the body count and how I could have been part of it. I'll make the most with what you did for me. John Whitson. Cerberus Command request. From Cerberus Command. Reports tell us that you've been operating in the Omega Nebula. We'd like you to look into a situation on Lorek, a nearby planet in the Fathar system. Scan the planet for a base, where we believe Eclipse mercs are holding one of our operatives. You should be able to detect the operative's transmitter. Extract the operative. If the operative is beyond rescue, recover any relevant intel that Eclipse may have collected. This is a very delicate matter, Shepard. We trust in your discretion. Okay, actually, this seems so Fathar and Lorek. I might wind up doing this mission, I think. Let's take a quick look at the journal. Oh, it looks like there's some stuff we can do on Omega first. Yeah, deliver the datapad to Arya. We'll do that first, but I don't think there's anything else for me to do on Omega. Yeah, so let's start with a quick Omega mission, but I'll
Commander, you've received a new message at your private terminal.
betcha I haven't. Why must you turn this spaceship into a house of
How is our
lies?
newest Turian crew member doing? His injuries looked painful.
He's a soldier. It'll take a lot more than that to keep him down.
There's something about him. I just want to hold him close and whisper, "It will be all right."
I know exactly what you mean.
You two would be such a cute couple.
Oh, go to hell.
How may I help you, Commander?
Is there anything I should know?
Nothing right now. Anything else, Commander?
Do you have a moment to talk?
I always have time for you, Commander.
I better go.
Okay. Maybe we'll talk later.
Commander, can I help you with something?
How we doing, Jacob? What's your sense of the mission?
If Morden's modifications hold up, we've got a shot. If they don't, we're dead. Seems like that was always a strong possibility, though. Anything else, Commander?
So I'm not really getting a whole lot.
What do you think of the state of the crew?
Well, we don't have a full complement. We don't stand a chance without the right specialists on side. Anything else, Commander?
Yeah, we're not getting a lot new out of this, so let's take
I'm more interested in just talking for a bit.
If you want, Commander. Cerberus has ranks, but it's not the Alliance. No rules about fraternization. Your boat, your call. You want to get friendly with everyone? That's your business.
You sound hesitant, Jacob. Am I putting you on the spot?
You're trying to. Sorry if I knee-jerked. Cerberus puts a lot of suspicion in your head. I like you, Shepard. So talk, and we'll see how it goes.
Anyone waiting for you back home?
Only child and no extended family. Never settled down. Didn't seem fair with this job. But you can't miss what you never had.
I know you and Miranda worked together. I got the impression it might have been more than that.
It got a little close. Then it got really far apart. The rest isn't your business, Commander.
Consider it dropped. I trust you to keep everything professional, Jacob.
Thanks. That always bugged me about the Alliance. They didn't let people handle their own problems. Cerberus isn't any better. They just put more effort into hiding how much they spy on you.
Let them watch. We're not hiding anything.
Wouldn't matter if we were. It's not like they can reel us in. We're handling this, whether they like it or not. Anyway, I should get back to prep. Nice talking to you, Shepard. Let's do it again sometime.
I do sort of like the way that they parcel out some of the information in this, especially because one thing that I really noticed about the first game was I had a distinct impression about where certain dialogue options would go before I even really read them. In this one here, I found it kind of interesting because I was never quite sure where the dynamic of the conversation would go with some of them. Obviously, there's ones that are a little bit more oriented towards romance, but I like the fact that you can put some thought. One of the things I really like about games like this is I don't necessarily want to go for a specific outcome. Like, so I don't like the idea of like full Renegade, full Paragon playthrough. I more sort of like having some nudges in terms of where the overall arc goes. And so I do enjoy it when the game sort of keeps me on my toes, but it's also very difficult because I tend to react very negatively when the game makes me say something that I don't feel I intended.
Shepard, how can I help?
Have you got a minute to talk?
Yes, would like that, actually. Talked about work earlier. Time with Special Tasks Group studying genophage. It wasn't entirely honest. Lie of omission. Also, other kinds need to clear the air. Mission too important to keep secrets. Work on genophage was more than just study.
What was the Special Tasks Group doing with the Krogan genophage?
Study at first, as I said, but uncovered surprising data. Krogan population was increasing at faster rate than expected. Krogan were adapting to genophage, overcoming disease.
Did the Krogan evolve, or did some of their scientists develop a treatment?
Krogan scientists? Never met Krogan scientist worthy of term. No. Natural evolution. Krogan physiology incredibly durable. Organ redundancy, backup systems, cellular regeneration. Genophage like any other natural hazard. Krogan evolved past it.
Maybe they were just having a lucky year. Or fewer mercs left, meaning more Krogan were left to repopulate.
Please, Shepard. Social environmental concerns accounted for. Not an undergraduate. Population spike caused by adaptation to genophage. No other possibility.
The genophage was a terrible mistake. It nearly destroyed the Krogan and their culture. Now they have a chance to recover.
Naive viewpoint. Krogan too dangerous to allow unchecked birth rate. Look at Krogan rebellions. Personally led a science team. Geneticists, chemists, sociologists, mathematicians. Created new version of genophage. Released it on Tuchanka, other Krogan-centric areas. Restabilized Krogan population.
You never considered other options?
Hundreds. Thousands. Modified genophage offered best outcome. Stabilized population, avoided publicity that could incite Krogan anger, averted potential genocide, or devastating war. Best solution for whole galaxy. Krogan included.
How did you distribute the modified genophage?
Covert drops, hospitals, clan centers, water supplies. Very difficult. Few Solarians on Tuchanka. Team got caught a few times. Had to fight free. Messy. Better when things went as planned.
How did your genophage modification work?
Krogan evolution attached garbage genetic code to genophage attack sites. Modification created other areas for garbage code to connect. Left sites clean, capable, running smoothly.
I doubt you told many people about this, Mordin. I appreciate you letting me know.
Wanted you to know I'm willing to do what's necessary. Should get back to work. Talk more later. Next time tissue synthesis has to compile. Good for free time.
All right. I think I've got Miranda and Garrus to speak to now.
Another
Oh,
colony.
damn it. That's not the right one. I always keep seeing these two, and there's no
That's not far from New
no
Hampshire.
reason.
Did your family get back to Earth?
Not yet. My mother-in-law's giving us grief. Operative loss of the shores. The transport team will physically drag them away.
Commander, what can I do for you?
Do you have a minute, Miranda?
There's a lot to do, Shepard. Maybe another time.
Damn it, Miranda!
Of course, Commander.
All right. Well, that does save me a little time.
Did you hear? Another colony went missing. Ferris Fields.
Ferris Fields. Didn't Hadley
Nothing
have a
here.
mother stationed there?
Yeah, he's taking it pretty
I
hard.
guess Garrus is at the bottom level then? There's something that said life support. Okay, we don't have that character yet. The Normandy is a lot easier to navigate when rebuilt by Cerberus. Not that I don't get occasionally lost, but...
I just heard. The collectors hit the Ferris Fields colony. Everyone's gone.
Shit! We're going to make those dirty buggers pay.
I'm going to refrain the urge to do a terrible accent. Sorry, did I say refrain? Resist the urge. Refrain from doing the terrible accent. I know Garrus is somewhere. I'm pretty sure this is where the mercenary is. I think probably I mistaken the, yeah, I mistook the, this area I seem to remember there was a big wall in Mass Effect 1, so I always keep forgetting there's a door here.
Shepard, need me for something?
Have you got any upgrade ideas for the Normandy's weapon systems?
A few, yeah. Here, take a look. Let me know when you've got the materials for me to upgrade our guns.
Have the Cerberus crewmen given you any trouble?
I think being part of the team that took down Saren got me some points. Everyone I talked to was polite anyway. Don't worry, Commander. We're all working together.
What can you tell me about the Normandy's armaments?
Looks like Cerberus upgraded what the ship carried before. Should have a bit more kick. I still don't like our chances against a collector ship, though. Not unless we upgrade the guns.
Have you got a minute?
Sure. Just checking the weapon systems. You can never be too careful. I thought I'd seen every weapon in the galaxy in our fight against Saren. Mercenary work showed me otherwise. And now Cerberus rebuilds the Normandy with a few upgrades to boot. I wish we'd joined up with them sooner.
We haven't joined Cerberus. They're funding our mission. That's all.
Relax, Shepard. Just a figure of speech. I can't exactly doubt your judgment. Not after I got my own squad killed.
What did your Merc squad do? Didn't sound like you were available for hire.
You saw Omega. It was full of thugs kicking the helpless. I formed my team to kick back. We weren't mercenaries. At least nobody was paying us. We made money by taking down slavers, pirates, or gangs that went too far.
It sounds like you were just another gang.
Then I'm saying it wrong. We didn't shake anyone down. No civilian casualties. That was our rule. Every member of my team had lost someone to Omega's gangs. We weren't out to get rich. We were out to make those bastards think twice before murdering someone in the street.
Doesn't sound like you made any friends with the gangs.
I got 3 separate merc bands to work together to take me down. My manager at CSEC would be impressed. It was simple. We'd hit their shipments, disrupt activities, get under their skin, make them angry. They'd come charging right into our well-prepared kill zone, crossfire and snipers, clean and surgical. They never stood a chance.
How'd you end up fighting mercenaries here on Omega?
After the Normandy was destroyed, most of us went our separate ways. CSEC asked me back, but I turned them down. Omega was filled with criminals nobody else could touch. And there was no red tape to slow me down. It was a perfect fit. People here needed someone to believe in. Someone to stand up to the local thugs.
That explains how you started. How'd you end up with a squad?
Not too different from how you formed your squad to fight Saren, actually. You prove that you get things done, and people join up. Mercs who wanted to atone. Security consultants tired of playing by the rules. I gave them hope. And now they're dead. Shows what I know.
Tell me about your squad.
There were 12 of us, including me. Former military operatives, CSEC agents, the usual. Had a Solarian explosives expert. Pretty sure he'd spent time in the Special Tasks Group. My tech expert was a Batarian, believe it or not. Not the friendliest guy, but he could hack any system ever built.
How did those mercenary gangs take down your team?
It was my own damn fault. One of my people betrayed me. A Turian named Sidonis. He drew me away just before the mercs attacked my squad. Then he disappeared. Everyone except me is dead because of him. And because I didn't see it coming.
I'm not sure I understand. What happened exactly?
Sidonis asked for my help on a job. When I got to the meeting point, nobody was there. By the time I got back to our hideout, the mercs had killed all but 2 of my squad. And they didn't last long.
You sure it was a betrayal? Maybe they took Sidonis out first.
No. I put out feelers with some old contacts. He booked transport off Omega just before the attack. He also cleared out his private accounts before he left. He sold me out and ran.
Do you know where Sidonis is now?
No. His trail vanishes after he leaves Omega, but I'll keep hunting. I lost my whole team except for Sidonis. One day I'll find him and correct that. Thanks for coming by, Shepard. I've got some things to take care of.
I forgot that there's a loyalty system in this, so we're setting up the future missions. But as I mentioned, we'll do a couple of the side missions, at least that are in the immediate area. My goal is to do, in each stream, I'd like to do at least one sort of main story mission, but I'm not going to hold myself to that, because if we wind up getting through a bunch of sort of minor stuff, I don't consider that wasted time, just so long as we have some of the, some of the Mass Effect experience, if you will. And part of that is appreciating the universe and getting to know the characters. It's funny, actually, I almost consider it like a really high budget and more interactive Telltale game in some senses. Speaking of which, I never really talked about what happened with Telltale, but also in the context of, lots of other game studios. It's really unusual. So it's one of these cases where I wonder if there is something that more established companies are finding that are leading to so many closures all at once. So I know there's Capcom Vancouver. There is... I need to decide... Yeah, Wolf Among Us was one of the first Telltale games, if not the first, that I played, and definitely one of my favorites. So I think it's a real shame. I've been meaning to write something on these closures, but one of the challenges that I run into, and this has actually become much more clear I'm kind of tempted for a Garrus Miranda squad. Let's try that. And we'll do our last. Assassin. Your focus on Cyberzone is enhanced, and you receive damage bonus to all weapons and powers. Whereas Agent, your endurance and mental fortitude reduce the recharge time of power and give bonus to the duration. Your Paragon and Renegade scores reach their highest. Wow. I'm really tempted because of the Paragon and Renegade score thing. So numerically, I definitely imagine my character more along the lines of Agent than Assassin. Sorry, I know I totally abandoned that other train of thought. I will get back to it. Okay, so bigger health bonus, smaller weapon damage. I don't use power that much. So Assassin is definitely more inclined towards... And it does seem like Paragon Renegade, like I still get a bonus. It's just not as big, so... I'm gonna go Assassin. So I wasn't crazy about the arc projector, but the grenade launcher I wasn't crazy about either, so I think we'll go with the default.
The plague has been completely eradicated, Shepard. I have also run searches for reports on Archangel. The various mercenary groups appear to believe that he is dead.
Works for me.
Won't they be surprised? But yeah, so... I don't feel like I can speak too broadly about this yet. But I've actually had a very personal connection with one of the most recent batches of layoffs. So one of the things I would like to discuss in a blog at some point, and I can sort of roughly cover it now, keeping in mind that I want to be... I'm going to start off by saying some things that may not necessarily be that palatable, and I hope that I'll be able to sort of go through enough of this that people will bear with me to the more sensitive part. But one of the things I would like to discuss at some point is the idea of the closure of studios or businesses or that is not, like, in one way it is not the worst possible outcome.
Walking around this place makes me sick. People still dying, the strong still exploiting the weak. Nothing I did here even made a dent in this.
So what I mean by that is if you have a business which is not able to sort of sustain its its practices, either make payroll or make enough back from the investments that it's making. It's not always, it's not necessarily the best situation, right? There's either going to be stresses that are created, or there's not going to be an infinite supply of money. At some point, the thing's going to fall apart. And in another sense, it's damaging, because what it means is while that business is sort of in this limbo where it's kind of not able to cover its costs, one of the things that it winds up doing is it winds up taking up this workforce and dedicating it towards something that is not necessarily productive. And so the challenge here is that means that there's a bunch of talent that is going sort of unrealized. It's not able to find its more productive use because it is being used in this unprofitable or unproductive location.
Tentatively excited.
Sorry, 1 second.
Welcome, human. What can I get for you?
What kinds of things do you sell here?
Friendly, salvaged parts. All kinds. Mostly legitimate. With pride, my prices are the lowest anywhere on the station. You won't find salvage cheaper than mine.
I have things to do.
Courteously, have a fine day. Take a look at my kiosk if you want to buy.
So, in a very long-term sense, it is not necessarily bad for a company to fold, because that means that those resources are freed from an unproductive use to a more productive use, or at least has the potential. Now, the problem with this, and the reason why I think this is a very callous assessment, is that this is of absolutely no help to the individuals who are affected by it. I'm sure someone wants to, somebody who's affected by these layoffs, and there are a lot as you start looking at the number of studios. When you take a look at the people who have been affected by this, I'm not entirely sure that it's that much of a comfort to turn around and say to them, well, you're just that much more productive at another place. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things. That's actually why I think there is room for us to improve, because in one sense, while I don't necessarily want to say that it's always a bad thing for a business to fold, sometimes there are things that don't need to stay around. I definitely feel like there should be circumstances under which people are sort of taken care of. So for instance, one of the things that bothers me so much about the Telltale situation is how it seems that nobody was given severance. And that's a big problem. Never gonna get tired of that. Even then, with a certain degree of severance, I feel like people, like nobody wants to lose their job. Nobody wants to be put in that kind of inconvenience. And I mean, more importantly too, when it's a location that maybe doesn't necessarily have a really robust, in this case, games industry or any other type of industry, it's really hard to find a relocation. So I don't know how many more game studios are in the Bay Area. So I don't know, again, it's all well and good for me to think theoretically about these things. But this will potentially mean that some people will need to move, and that's not necessarily a great thing for their mental health. So I've been trying to, in terms of writing, like I do want to sort of cover this, because in some ways you can sort of say I genuinely believe that there will be some talent that come out of this that maybe decide to found their own studio or to move to a job that winds up being the best one for them. And yet in the immediate term, it feels very callous to speak in those terms, because again, I'm not the one who's lost my position, and I absolutely do not envy the situation for others. But I guess the best way I can explain it is this. When I take a look, in Vancouver this happened a lot, but even in the city that I'm in right now, I would walk by businesses and I would see sort of a closed sign, or I'd see, for lease sign come up. And there's two ways that you can look at that, which is one, oh, isn't this so sad that a business closed? And that's true. But then there's the other side, and you see that building. It's like, I wonder who's going to go in there, and I wonder who's going to come up with a new idea. Because there's also opportunities that emerge from that. So, even worse than no severance was that a couple moved across the country to work there in the last week or two. Yeah, I read that as well, and that made me feel really bad. The other challenge too is I do have some nuanced views on unions, because in one sense I don't think it would be terrible for the games industry to have a union. I mean, I worked in film, I was a member of a union, and it helped me in terms of negotiating for wages and making sure that certain practices didn't happen. But on the other hand, I had to deal with what is the film equivalent of crunch. Like, I had Friday nights that would basically go until 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And I pretty commonly worked 16-hour days throughout productions. So some of the things that these unions are supposed to be dealing with, I don't necessarily think they're going to stop those practices in the games industry. And yet, on the other hand, you look at the way that some of these people at these game studios have been treated, and I have every sympathy in the world for the effort to unionize. I think the biggest thing is I don't see it as a universal solution, but I do think we're due for the serious conversation that a lot of people in the games industry are doing. I do think, though, that people should have a very frank and clear-eyed discussion about it, rather than necessarily saying that it's a universally good or universally bad application. I think people need to have a very clear idea about what the role of the union should be. Because the challenge, of course, is that if the union becomes a means through which sort of entry to the games industry is restricted, one of the things this can potentially create is sort of a sub-industry of people who are non-union trying to establish themselves. And to give you an example, like when I was getting into film, I worked for free for quite some time to then be able to get into the union. And I'm not entirely sure I like this idea. I think that is a recipe for people to become exploited in terms of gaining some exposure. So for instance, I think CD Projekt Red would go out of its way to crush unions. And I think the devil's bargain people would make with CD Projekt Red is they get to work at a prestigious studio. They would not make a lot of money, and it would be non-union, but they would be getting some experience. And I definitely feel that would be I feel like that would happen more often in a union situation than not. And so I feel that one of the ways that the games industry should think about unionization is to make sure that this situation isn't created in which people do work sort of on spec in hopes of gaining some experience.
What do you need? This data pad was on one of the mercs going after Archangel. They were coming for you next. Let me see.
Interesting. Would someone like to tell me how this information slipped the net?
I'll look into it.
You've done a lot for me, Shepard. Let me return the favor. We're sending your coordinates to a cache on an uncharted world. You want it? It's yours.
I'm not looking for payment from you.
Look at you. So proud. Whatever you find is yours to deal with.
We friendly enough to talk about who you were before Omega?
You're reaching back centuries, Shepard. Long before anything that
I'm just curious if there's anything new in this dialogue.
Secret. No reason, from your perspective. But there are plenty of people out there with long memories. I've had a few careers, a few names. Commando training, mercenary leanings. I've kept what was valuable and dropped the baggage.
You're important, but also isolated. No other allies out there to back you up?
I lean toward a particular type of work. It tends to encourage professional rivalry. Sometimes you'd rather disappear than be forced to kill someone.
All right, I'll drop it.
Better luck next time.
I don't think there's
Maybe I'll come
much.
back later. Maybe I'll be here.
Don't think there's much else for me to do here. Let's take a quick look at the journal. I am a little curious. This seems like not a bad one to do. But okay, Lost Operative. I think the Lost Operative is the one that I want to. So the Fathar system. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't that articulate on it, but I wish one of the things I am looking to maybe try and do for a blog at some point is to be able to discuss what's happening with these closures and layoffs, and to try and put it in perspective in terms of how I think one of the problems that I run into that I need to work about is what I'm actually wanting to say about it. Because there are some potential. So in the long run, there are some potential benefits from it. In the end, that talent that was locked up in Telltale, that was not able to sustain itself, and this may even, this may just simply be the inheritance from bad decisions made down the road. Like the problem here is that the people who are affected by this are not necessarily the ones responsible for what happened to them. So in one sense, you sort of have this talent at Telltale, which might have been locked up in a way that now can be realized elsewhere, and we wind up with better games, and they wind up with better pay, better working conditions as a result of it. But none of that matters in the short run, and I need to find a good way of managing both of those thoughts. So I did not realize I had so many options here. So let's start with some exploration. Urdak is a close-orbiting brown dwarf. Most red-brown dwarf binary systems have an average separation of 8 AU. The Sherabak system is about 12 billion years old and has long since used up the deuterium used to fuel fusion. So Urdak is not luminous like some of the brown dwarfs are. Urdak is a Class L brown dwarf with a relatively low temperature of 1300 degrees Celsius, but its heat and gravity have made it unpopular for development. There are rumors that the heads of several of Omega's crime syndicates maintain private residences on various moons. Whatever the truth of the matter, battles between syndicate vessels are often observed around the ring plane. News outlets on Omega maintain satellites at Urdak's Lagrange points for real-time coverage of these battles, which garner high viewer ratings. That is right. Yes, this is a lot. So this is the thing that I thought was really neat. This is a lot like Starflight.
In research projects, iridium is used to upgrade heavy weapons, submachine guns, and assault rifles.
So I'm going to be a little boring on this, but I do...
Probe away. In research projects, palladium is used to upgrade heavy pistols, armor, and cybernetics.
How badly do I want this? Yeah, let's go for it.
Probe away. In research projects, platinum is used to upgrade sniper rifles, shotguns, and medical equipment.
I like this a lot. So I really feel like I should do Starflight for you guys, even if I wind up doing the less visually appealing version of it. I feel like it would be worth it to just sort of show you guys where this stuff came from. I don't remember offhand though how I recharge the probes. I think I need to buy them, but obviously we're at the point of diminishing returns here, but we'll see if there's anything interesting I can find. Oh, that looks like a
Probe launched.
yeah, so like this is not quite, it's technically something that I need, but it's not quite enough to compel me to use. I've already used over half my probes on an area that obviously Ooh, there's a lot of palladium though. You don't remember ever buying probes? It's possible. It's possible I need to like build or buy them or something like that.
Probe away.
Depleted. All right then. I mean, I've got enough palladium.
Probe launched.
All right, so I'll leave it at that for now. Oh, actually, you know what? I know this is kind of lame, but I have played this game before, so let's just do a quick Google search. From the wiki, probes are used in Mass Effect 2 in order to discover resources or landing sites on uncharted planets. They can be launched as part of the planet scanning minigame. On PC, right-click scans an area, left-click launches a probe. The planet may be rotated by scanning near its edge, or by using the right analog stick on the 360. Can carry a finite number of probes, 30 initially, and after 60 after recruiting Thane. Additional probes can be purchased at the fuel depot. Okay, so I'm gonna...
Probe launched.
It's basically a way of turning credits into resources, so I'm good with that. You had infinite probes. All right, I need to figure out how you did that. Standard methane ammonia gas giant, Amorkan is the main source of helium-3 fuel for ships coming to or from Omega. Most of its fueling stations are run by criminal cartels who engage in cutthroat, sometimes literally pricing wars. Amorkan is also widely known for its layover stations, where pirates in a hurry can find fuel, ammunition, intoxicants, gambling, and sexual companionship at any hour. It's not the end of the world, Sean Bean. I'm just I'm obviously a little unfamiliar with the game, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't wasting resources. Like, obviously, if I didn't have a means of gaining probes, I would want to save some to be able to do this. But I'm gonna get an advanced scanner as a result of research, which will help me with my resource extraction. But while we're doing this, because I know this is really fun for me and probably very not fun for people watching, one of the things, so again, Starflight was a big inspiration for the original Mass Effect, and one of the things that never quite wound up working for them was the sort of the Mako sequences and the planet exploration. But it's very clear what they were trying to do. If you've played Starflight, it's very clear what they were trying to do with this, or rather with the planet exploration sequences, which was to try and find resources. I need to figure out exactly. Alright, this will have to do. Oop.
Probe away.
But basically, it was sort of to try and find resources by exploring planets, because obviously that's one thing that's interesting in science fiction games, to be able to explore alien worlds and see what's going on. But it seems that the sending out the rover to look for these goods was not something that quite hit off, which is a shame, because I actually rather enjoyed playing around with the vehicle. But obviously, you know, players expressed their views of the utility of that particular segment. So what's neat about this one is what they've done. In Starflight, there was a system that was very similar to this. You could bring up sort of a scanner and you could get some hints in terms of where certain resources might be. I'll go for this.
Probe away.
Ooh.
Probe launched.
Yeah, I can live with that. So you'd kind of go to this screen, and you would, you'd get roughly an idea of what was available on the planet. You'd sort of see these little red flashes or something like that. I'm actually gonna take a minute and see if I can get that upgrade right away. Nope, I want Normandy upgrades. I think I might be able to do that at my personal terminal. Anyways, so one of the problems with it is you always need to flip between the two screens. That didn't quite work for me. But it was a really interesting system just because you got this chance to kind of go, you'd explore a planet, you'd pick up... oh, this is the exact same... This is the exact same menu, so I guess I'm going to have to speak individually to people on the team. That's fine. Mordrin, I think, is on deck 3? No, he's on deck 2. But yeah, so basically what Mass Effect kind of... I would say the planet exploration in Mass Effect 2 is a lot more like the... So like from orbit is a lot more like the Starflight exploration when you were actually on the planet itself.
Any ideas on other ways to prepare for the collectors?
Ideas, yes. Expensive, but possibly valuable. Can show you.
Okay, so ship enhancements are top priority. And I need 1,500 iridium.
Let me know if upgrades seem feasible. Can install them whenever you like.
I'll let you work.
We'll be here if you need me.
So yeah, I'm going to prioritize iridium. But yeah, anyway, so I have no idea why I went there. Maybe I just want to see Jacob again. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see how it's neat to see that they were able to take this thing that inspired them in the form of Starflight. I feel like, yeah, you know what, we've got lots of probes, so we'll run with it. Oop, hello. I guess I didn't really read the story for that planet, but...
Launching probe.
Anyways, I kind of like the fact that they were able to pick up something that inspired them and put it into this game here. Although obviously I always say the real missed opportunity was when you have you know, actually here's a way of looking at this. So way back before the Disney acquisition of Marvel, you had a 20th Century Fox X-Men. The ones that were directed by Bryan Singer. And Bryan Singer, before X-Men 3 left to film Superman Returns, or was it called Superman? I think it was Superman Returns. Superman lifts heavy things for 2.5 hours. I was not a big fan of that movie. And I think one of the things that's such a shame about that trilogy is when you learn a little bit about Bryan Singer's biography, you actually get an idea about why he was a really good choice for that particular series. I'm very tempted to hold back. I mean, there's obviously something here, so I'll pick it up, but I think I should actually start spending some of this platinum before I extract any more. In terms of his background, he's Jewish, he is homosexual, and I believe he does not know his original parents. So I think there's a really specific reason why. I mean, if you think about the opening of the first X-Men movie, I mean, and it's important to remember, like, that movie came out before comic book movies were the big thing. I think it was like either that movie or like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Oof. I don't think I can justify that platinum. Let's go back onto the bridge. So it opens with this really compelling opening of, Magneto in a concentration camp, sort of realizing his powers. And obviously it's a film entirely about intolerance and sort of dealing with that, that theme. And then the second movie has these really clear coming out scenes, like even if like you are not one of the people who wants to like really get in deep on like the hidden meanings behind films or something like that, like when you have this scene where the parents like go to the kid and say, have you ever thought about not being a mutant? Like, there's a certain point where like it's really hitting you over the head with it. And I think that's what makes these films interesting, right? Like, it's not like, I know people really like complaining about this stuff when it's in a game. I remember like somebody who had hours in BattleTech saying is like, oh, I don't like transgender politics being in the game. I'm like, it gave you a gender option. Like, there's no need to get the smelling salts, for God's sake. But to me, this is the stuff that makes these movies interesting, because it's it's an experience, it's a perspective that I don't have, and I'm able to see it in sort of this context of a fairy story that doesn't, like I don't need to hear this like harrowing talk show account of this brutal upbringing that somebody had to be able to appreciate those themes. I'm able to understand them in this, in this fantasy world of people with superpowers. And so, stories like this become very interesting because of their humanity and because of their revelation of sort of an experience that I maybe don't personally appreciate myself. And, as I said a little bit earlier, I think that's one of the reasons why Bryan Singer was such an interesting choice, because it's very clear, indirectly or not. Now, obviously, I'm putting a lot of baggage in terms of what Bryan Singer's intentions were behind those movies. And yet it's hard for me to get the impression that that wasn't what was going on inside them. And so if you imagine a third Bryan Singer X-Men film, I imagine it would deal quite a bit with Wolverine and sort of this unresolved history with parents or origins. But unfortunately, we wound up with this Brett Ratner nonsense, which certainly put a lot of money into the the Vancouver film industry. I think I'm the only person in Vancouver who didn't work on X-Men 3. And instead we wound up with what I thought was a pretty subpar Superman movie. I will say that I really think ideas like that are also at play in Mass Effect. Like, I think it's one of the reasons why these games are so compelling is that, you don't need to, like, you do not need somebody to sit down and explain to you, why there's some great, social justice subplot going on, or some, deep, deep revelation in terms of, interactions with different cultures, or, inequalities or something like that. It's all in there, incidentally. I mean, the planet that we'll go to, I don't remember if it's a Volus planet or if it's a, I can't remember exactly the context for it, but I definitely remember there's a planet where they actually do with this, hyper-realized free market. I'm curious what the scanner doesn't really seem to give me all that much more, but then we are on a depleted planet, so I'll buy some more probes and actually move on to the mission. Oh, nope, fuel depot, please. It's far away. So I think we can probably go to Fathar and then maybe Amda immediately afterwards, because they're all pretty close. But yeah, I mean, beyond just sort of filling the silence with some of the the stories that I enjoy, I think it's one of the reasons why, whether you're looking at a Telltale game or a Mass Effect game or something like that, or you can even bring this back to Cultist Simulator. Cultist Simulator is a crazy story about you playing this Lovecraftian villain who's sending out people who you influence in pursuit of unknown or dark secrets and summoning alien gods and so on and so forth. And yet it's so easy to read this as passion and creativity, and how do you spend your time not just with your life but day to day. How do you honestly, one of the simplest things that you can just think about in terms of Cultist Simulator is when you have to go to a 9-to-5 job, how do you retain that creative spark? How do you create that thing that you really want to? And alternatively, if you dedicate yourself to your passion, if you dedicate yourself to that thing that you want to do, how do you maintain an existence? Especially in a world that might be indifferent to that gift. And that's a really, it's a really indie game. It's a really unique one. But even in the case of Mass Effect, like, one of the reasons why these stories are so compelling is that, you've got the arm's length of this crazy space opera where you get to be like a superhero or an absolute anti-hero or whatever you want. You're able to shift that story the way that you want to go. But there are things that, if they haven't happened in the real world, they're plausible enough to have happened. And there are things that sort of maybe reflect people that you've met, or even better still, maybe things that you've never encountered before, or things that might even make you uncomfortable, but they're presented now in a context that maybe puts your guard down, and instead you're able to sort of drink in that fairy story. And I think that's why the writing is so compelling. I think that's why the story is so compelling, is that it's able to tell you a little bit about the world with just maybe a spoonful of sugar to make the change happen. And I think that's again, you can appreciate it at surface level. You can just say, wow, that was a really fun ride. I really liked shooting the aliens, and I really liked watching the stuff blow up, and I felt really heroic. But clearly the reason why I like the characters in these games, whether it's The Wolf Among Us or Mass Effect or anything like that, is because there are just these echoes of people's life experience coming through. And I think that's why I like that games, Mario Brothers is great, Quake is fun, but I really like that people are starting to, to go interesting places in terms of games. It's what makes it so rewarding for me to play them. The surface of Dorgal is an ethane-soaked mush. The planet hovers near the boiling point of hydrocarbon and supports a diverse, if simple, slow-moving carbon-based ecology. The planet's gravity is strong enough to retain an atmosphere of molecular nitrogen and carbon monoxide, but the methane that has dominated billions of years ago has long since been lost. Alright, I have no idea what this advanced scanner's getting me. Oh, I guess it's bigger. So it'll take me this is actually huge for me to get early on, because I know you guys are gonna just tear me apart if I spend too much time on this nonsense. Mind you, a lot of our Normandy upgrades are already sorted, so that's some good news. I mean, at this point I might as well just start throwing around probes. It's kind of interesting too, because when you think about this, if I kind of imagine if BioWare anybody were to make this game again, I kind of feel like there'd be a conversation in the studio. Is there any way we can make this more friendly for streamers? Actually, this will be a fun little. So let's brainstorm this as we do this, because I'm obviously having the time of my life scanning these planets. I love doing this stuff. It's really fun. It's it's so simple, but it's I liked doing this in Starflight, and I like doing this in Mass Effect. But let's say, I don't think streaming was a big thing when Mass Effect 2 was made. Maybe somebody can correct me on that, but I feel like it wasn't. So what are the ways that, if you're a project manager on the modern remake of Mass Effect 2, what's the way that we would make this scanning game stream well? Obviously the story beats work really well. It's something that can be experienced visually, but you can go, I don't want to say gimmick, but like one thing you could potentially try and do is actually make this an interactive experience. So instead of seeking out resources in this specific way, you could have like a chat interaction, chat votes on what kind of encounters in space you have. Oh, I'm gonna go over the limit on this. Oh, no, I'm not. I mean, one way you could handle this too is that these resources are gained through, through completing missions, that you only find them on planets that you go to. But I think this is supposed to replace the Mako. If there's a limit, I'm not hitting it, so. I mean, it's visually compelling already on its own. One thing that I would actually find personally interesting, I don't know if you'd be able to, like, pitch this to someone. but I'd be really interested in giving chat knowledge. So like this is something that with my backseating neuroses I'd have a problem with. But what if you were trying to make this stream friendly and chat could see where the resources were and the streamer couldn't? That would be an interesting one. Obviously, you'd have to have a built-in streaming program inside of the game. Although I actually think that's a tremendous opportunity that more developers should take advantage of, to include some kind of streaming technology within the game and be able to play with that with the audience. But of course, you know, Telltale has a crowd play feature for their later. Oh, I did not know that. That's a great idea. What are some of the games that do that, Sean Bean? Korgar is a small, lifeless rock blessed with significant deposits of thorium used in radiation shielding and the manufacture of space frame alloys. Small population of miners eke out an existence on the surface, selling their ore at Lorek and praying that the intermittent raids in the Terminus pirate clans will pass their homestead by. There have been no children born on Korrar ever since the infamous pirate raid of 2047, when every child on the planet was rounded up and taken as a slave. Any couple finding itself pregnant preemptively moves off-world. Cool. I've never played any of the Telltale Batman games, but hearing that... Oh, you know what? I should have... Well, it'll be interesting to see whether or not there's a cap on Platinum. I'll probably find out... I'll probably leave some Platinum on the table after this, but... Okay, so this will be a good test. Nope, looks like we just keep accumulating it. Good news for me. Although, again, these resources exist to be consumed, so... I mean, I'm willing to throw away probes, but I've got so many other planets to do this for. I've actually probably wasted too many now that I think about it, because there's no refueling station for me to take advantage of. Anyways, we'll do our job. My intention is to obtain as many resources as I can, and if I have to go back to a fueling station to finish the job, so be it. Still not depleted, huh? Turns out it wasn't made with Twitch in mind. What is crowdplay? Crowdplay allows people watching the same screen to be part of the story using their own mobile device or PC. By having your friends or family join a crowdplay session, everyone gets to vote on the choices made in the game. Crowdplay is designed for 6 to 12 players in the same room. It is not designed for use with streaming services. You know, I will say though, I actually give Telltale a lot of credit for that. Because I think one highly underappreciated aspect. So, I don't know a lot of people I don't really know a lot of people to game with in person. Sorry, just... Apparently I can let up off the... Yeah, so I can let up a little bit early and save some fuel.
Anomaly detected.
Aha. So with that in mind, I always get a little annoyed when there's a cooperative mode. This is the last game you gamed with another person in the same room was Riven. Oh wow, I've never played Riven, but that's the sequel to Myst, I believe. But yeah, so as disappointed as I am, so like for instance, I think Overcooked, I've never played it personally, but from what I understand, it's couch co-op, and obviously that's easier for indies to do. I'm sometimes disappointed by it because it means that I don't have opportunities to sort of like co-op it with somebody like Johnny Big Time or Eyes of Sin, for instance. But with that in mind, and I think one thing I like the most about Telltale, making that a more personalized experience, is that, you know, it's fun to watch a movie with people. And I think to be able to do sort of a couch co-op, you know, in a living room, to be able to share a story together, I think that's a really good insight in terms of how people experience that kind of entertainment. I also think it's the sort of thing where you can sort of imagine a family, so maybe mom and dad don't want to play the game, or maybe mom and dad are the gamers in the house. You know, to be able to bring everyone in on that and to have it be a tight-knit experience, I like a lot. And I think the fact that they specifically went aside from the streaming service is also interesting, because of course it makes this recommendation that, you know, it's not sufficient to experience the game through a streamer or something like that. Obviously the one challenge is if you make a game that's good for streaming and you can only experience it through watching the story, you know, one person needs to buy a copy and then, you know, 20 people get the experience. Anyways, Lorak is an extremely rare example of a habitable world circling a red dwarf star. Originally an independent Asari colony named Eson, it was annexed by the Batarian hegemony in 1913, causing a major galactic incident. Despite several attempts, the local Terminus warlords have never been able to take Lorak for themselves. Lorak is a low-density world composed of rock, light metals, and a water-based crust. It is tidally locked to Fathar, a sunward hot pole and a shadowed with a sunward hot pole and a shadowed cold pole. I've got a hot pole for you. Sorry. Isaacson says the experience-sharing aspect of games like that, especially games with stories that have diverging paths depending on your choices, is something great. Water on the sunward side evaporates quickly, traveling over the islands of the habitable Terminator zone in the form of massive, fast-moving thunderstorms, finally settling as snow on the frozen dark side. There are fears that the buildup of the ice cap mass on the far side may cause axial reorientation over the course of several million years, but Batarian officials dismiss this idea as an irresponsible theory disseminated by counter-hegemonist subversives. Follow the white indicate. Oh, here we go. That's nice of the game to sort of.
Is not known. General distress. Beacon auto process interrupted at parse point ACO 655321. Status.
I have found something.
Oh yeah, it's fun. I am just the most exploitive commander. Cerberus is just completely hollowing out these planets and leaving them. Alright, signal scans detect a transmitter matching Cerberus encryption. It is registered to an unknown deep cover operative. Cerberus operative life signs unconfirmed. Other transmissions that match known Eclipse coded communications also detected. Let's do this! You guys finally get to see some combat. You know, I'm gonna try this Garrus Miranda combo for a bit. I do like the other biotics, Jacob's biotics, but I think I need to find my A team again. I also really need to find a way of getting some extra ammo for the sniper rifle. Damn it!
Then stay down.
Come on, ladies. Deploying Warfield!
Well, Garrus wasn't too helpful. So needy, game.
My shields are down.
You like how the wireframe of the shuttle looks like a transform? Oh, that's right. I didn't think of that, but you're not wrong. Interrogator Corporal Giro, subject Cerberus Agent Tyrone Rawlings. Eclipse targeted Agent Rawlings some time ago. We know Rawlings is connected to the encrypted data we acquired. The data could conclusively prove Cerberus's involvement in Rachni experiments. We believe Rawlings possesses a cipher that can be used to decrypt the data. Without a cipher, the data could take years for Eclipse to decode. Subject captured. Interrogator Corporal Giro, subject Cerberus Agent Tyrone Rawlings. Agent Rawlings proved difficult to capture, having insinuated himself on a ship bound for the Attican Traverse. He had won over the loyalty of the ship's crew, who believed him to be a human dignitary on a mission of discovery. Our own agents managed to disable the ship and hobble its defenses long enough to extract Agent Rawlings. We lost a lot of men to obtain this asset. This data had better be worth the expense. Subject interrogated. Corporal Giro, Cerberus Agent Tyrone Rawlings. The interrogation has failed. Despite some of our most advanced interrogation techniques, Agent Rawlings managed to evade our questions. When we applied more invasive methods, he proved resilient to those as well. Eventually, Agent Rawlings' resistance caused tempers to flare. We consider it unfortunate that Agent Rawlings did not live to pass on the cipher. We have men working to decipher the encryption now. As long as we control this data, its mere existence remains a powerful tool against Cerberus.
This should slow him down.
I am a terrible shot.
Nice shot.
Gotcha!
How did I miss that? Alright. Moral. Alright, well. Let's bring something a little more savory up.
No shit!
Really wanted to try and make the most out of that health. It's obviously because we killed so many of them, there should be a bunch of ammo over here. I'm really noticing the game's pretty stingy with ammo, or I'm just bad, but I know once I get back on the Normandy, I'm going to try and see if there's a way to expand the ammunition for the sniper rifle. Yes, please. There we go. I always feel bad when I get Medigel because I'm, even though I'm loaded, I want to make as much money as possible. It's also really dumb for me to have my sniper rifle out like this, because it's very unlikely I'm going to be running into anything at like long range, but god damn it. I forgot that this is so harsh. I shouldn't have been. My attention was a little distracted, so I don't think my memory's quite that bad. But who knows?
This computer contains the encrypted intelligence extracted from the captured Cerberus agent. The information could adversely affect Cerberus if it were ever circulated publicly. Data uploaded to Alliance Command.
Oh wow! I missed out on a chance to explore. Cerberus operative Tyrone Rawlings was found dead. Encrypted data transmitted to Alliance for decryption. Hopefully the elusive man doesn't know about that. Although I did bring Miranda on the mission, so... Hey Miranda, what did you think of the last
Commander,
mission?
you received a new message at your private terminal.
Is it an all capital letters message from the elusive man? Take care of Garrus, Nala Butler. Commander Shepard, my husband was the one of the men serving on Garrus's team. I don't know how much Garrus talked to you about what happened. I don't know the specific myself, only that my husband died in a trap set by those bastard gangs. I know Garrus blames himself. He took every shot fired at his squad as a failure on his part, and it was clear when he sent me the message about my husband that he thinks it was his fault. My husband would never have wanted that. He was proud of the work that he did on Garrus's squad. He was taking back Omega from the gangs. He died fighting with honor. I miss him. God, I'd give anything to get him back. But whatever happened there wasn't Garrus's fault. You're his commander now. Please, if you can help him stop blaming himself. And please don't tell him that I sent you this. Thank you. Nala Butler. You're alive? From Mom. So I have to find out that my child is a live third hand from the Alliance brass? Where the hell have you been? I figure whatever you're doing is classified, likely part of your Spectre operations. Just stay safe out there and keep doing your mom proud. Sneak something through secure channel next time. Love, your mother, Captain Hannah. From Alliance Command. Commander, we got the data you sent. If this went public, it could do some serious damage to Cerberus's image. This intel will take years to decode, but just having it is a huge win for the Alliance. Well done, Shepard. Good luck on your mission. Cerberus needs to prove its value to me.
I bumped into Zaid recently. Quite the character. Given how much violence and destruction that man's seen, he's surprisingly well adjusted. Still, I wouldn't want
Hey,
to
the letter
involve
B.
with them. Anyway, what's up?
Is there anything I should know?
Nothing right now. Anything else, Commander?
That'll be all.
I'll be here if you need anything.
Alright, let's do a quick... well, I'll definitely do some upgrades. But we'll see if there's anything Mordrin can give me. So, first quick check. So... I mean, I do have a fair amount of platinum. Upgrades the Normandy medical facilities with an advanced dermal regeneration unit. Using this unit will immediately and completely heal your scars. Further scarring will not occur. Okay, so I definitely don't care about that one for now. So let's start with the weapon upgrades. This looks like I'm actually quite limited in what I can do. Okay, so lacking iridium. Need 1 billion platinum. Element 0. More platinum. I used to be drowning in it. Okay. I'll naturally get this as I go running through, so.
Shepard, how can I help?
Have you got a minute to talk?
Some other time. About to test new bioweapon. Not on us, of course. Didn't think I had to specify, but Joker got nervous. Anything else?
I'll let you work.
We'll be here if you need me.
Commander, can I help you with something?
I'm more interested in just talking for a bit.
Already? I'm not big on forcing these talks, Shepard. Let's do this later.
You're dead to me.
Commander.
What's this area of the ship?
This is the Combat Information Center. Here,
No messages for you, Commander.
I'll take a minute and see what's up with Joker. I don't think he's going to say anything, but I'm pretty sure the rest of the crew is not going to have anything too interesting to say, but.
Yes, Shepard.
I want to know more about you.
Do you have a specific inquiry?
How are you getting along with Joker?
Mr. Moreau does not trust me. It offends him that I am installed aboard his ship's computers.
Yeah, the last Normandy did just fine without an AI reminding me the airlock is ajar.
Why are you named EDI?
EDI is the phonetic pronunciation of EDI. That is an acronym for Enhanced Defense Intelligence.
Where are you?
My core intelligence is housed in a quantum blue box located behind the medical bay.
What do you do aboard the ship?
I operate the ship's electronic and cyber warfare suites in combat. My reaction time is much faster than any organic. I collate the records of shipboard monitoring devices for the Elusive Man. I serve additional functions which are restricted at this time.
Restricted functions? Like what?
I do not know. Some of my databases are sealed, some of my hardware is kept offline. I assume that when certain unknown conditions are met, those functions will be released to me.
Alright, I don't think we're going to get anything new out of
That's
this.
all
So.
for now.
Logging you out, Shepard.
Commander,
I assume everything's going well up here?
we're just having an argument over personalization of my workspace.
Cerberus regulations are clear, Mr. Moreau. Personalization does not include grease on my bridge cameras.
It's just mad that all its footage of me looks like a dream sequence.
I assume everything's going well up here?
Good for now. Fractured my thumb on the mute, but I think I made my point.
I assume everything's going well up here?
Good for now. Fractured my
I
thumb
assume
on...
everything's
Oh,
going
God damn it, stop!
Fractured my thumb on the mute, but I think I made my point.
So, how do you think we're doing?
Well, the Normandy's not as ready as she could be. There's always more we could upgrade. And as for the crew, you'd have to ask a people person.
What do you think about the people we're picking up?
Well, about the ones you went out with last, I would never say anything against Miranda, and expect to survive the reprisal. It seems like Garrus has finally worked that stick out of his butt, but now he's trying to beat guys to death with it. I can't believe I like the old Garrus better. It's just my opinion, though. There's really no need to go spreading it around.
Ever think about the old Normandy and the trouble we got up to?
Yeah, those seem like the good old days now, but come on, it was hell at the time. Geth, Saren, Sovereign, and then we got dumped. We're stuck in a weird place, sure, but back then it wasn't all sunshine and bunnies.
That's it for now.
See you, Commander.
Yeah, most of that was stuff we've seen before, although I hadn't heard the Garrus dialogue before. So we'll do a quick run to see if Garrus has anything to say to me. If not, then we can go back to exploration. I can technically do the exploration now, but I don't want to forget. Oh, that's right. Also, Amanda didn't have something to say with us last time, so she might have some more details unlocked.
Commander, what can I do for you?
Anything I should know regarding the Normandy?
The crew's working well, and the ship appears to be performing to specifications.
Do you have a minute, Miranda?
There's a lot to do, Shepard.
Damn it, you're dead to me too!
I'll let you work.
Of course, Commander.
Garrus, talk to me.
Shepard, need me for something?
Have you got a minute?
Can it wait for a bit? I'm in the middle of some calibrations.
Have you got any upgrade ideas for the Normandy's weapon systems?
My current upgrades are working pretty well. That's about the best I can do.
Talk to you later, Garrus.
I'll be here if you need me.
How long do Garrus's calibrations last? Because I remember when I played the game, he'd be calibrating forever. We'll see if Dr. Chakwas has anything to say, but...
How may I help you, Commander?
Do you have everything you need?
I believe so. This medical bay seems very much like the sick bay on the original Normandy. Only thing missing are my private reserves. I even had a bottle of Ceres Ice Brandy that I was saving for a special occasion.
I'll see you later, Doctor.
Commander.
Okay, let's finish plundering the planet, and then we can go... I'll probably wind up going on a few more sort of mini missions, just because I really seem to be in... You know, I'm in a good spot for it, so... Nope, depleted. Is that right? Oh, yeah, that's right, because it wasn't, it was Lorek that we were at. Now we plunder.
Probe away.
I also should have thought about spending that element 0 before, I wasn't really thinking about what the things cost when I spent that element 0, but it's the one thing I've not been able to find on planets, and I believe that's by design.
Launching probe.
I don't remember exactly its role in... Oh yeah, the other thing I remember about this game was I always kept mistaking palladium and platinum. So like I'd always like just spend spend ridiculous amounts of palladium thinking that I've got an infinite reserve. But yeah, I seem to remember element 0 is supposed to be one of the things that allows for sort of alteration of gravity in the Mass Effect universe.
Probe away. Launching probe.
So clearly I'm missing out on a huge deposit somewhere, but we've not explored this part of the planet yet, so... I'm assuming the way this is gonna turn out is I'm gonna get one load like that. And, okay, well it did knock it down to moderate, so it's gonna be...
Launching probe. Probe launched.
That's a good one for Iridium. I needed that for some upgrades, so...
Launching probe.
So yeah, pretty much every time I hit one of those like huge spike ones, it seems to go down. It seems to go down a category. So there are some dregs that I can pick up, but honestly, unless it's like element 0 or something, I don't see a huge reason to go for it. Okay, so this is going to be annoying as hell, but I actually need to decide in my journal what the... I'm thinking probably Fair System in the Hourglass Nebula. I'm definitely thinking the Normandy crash site's not a terrible place for us to go, seeing as it's close by. So obviously we'll go to the AMDA system, and then when I need more probes, we can go back to the Shara-Berek system. Of course, the other thing is I might just want to explore these other systems while I'm at it, so I can collect the resources, and then I don't need to worry about coming back here. So I'm also gonna start doing an exploration policy of going from the outer ring to the inner ones. Anjaya is a typical ammonia methane ice giant. Traces of chlorine in the atmosphere give it a distinct green tint. Penetrating scans have revealed large numbers of hollow, unpowered objects with dimensions of 3.14 by 12.56 by 28.26 meters circulating in the equatorial cloud bands. These objects appear to have sails or wings attached, allowing them to be borne aloft by Anjaya's winds. While they are too deep to be reached for study, popular conjecture in xenoarchaeological circles holds that they are coffins of an ancient race who laid their dead to rest in the gas giant. I actually forgot to spend all of this, but that's fine. It's not going to stop me from using the remaining half of my probes, which is one of the reasons why I'm going from the outside to the inside. It's going to split things up between action and resource gathering, because as much as I enjoy this thing, I know I'm really trying people's patience when I do too much of this. I'm genuinely not sure if Woban is referring to the burial practices or if he's referring to my extraction operations. Either way, I'm extremely amused. If I needed anything, it was more platinum, right? Still. It's easy for me to say that, but until I have every upgrade, there's no point in letting that go to waste. Okay, I'm slightly tempted here, but let's find something. There we go.
Probe launched.
Yeah, so I can get the Met Bay upgrade, but I do kind of like the idea of my choices having some consequences in terms of my character's appearance. Like, I don't know if the med bay gives any other benefit, but if I had to spend like 50,000 platinum just to make my character look a certain way, I would be willing to, I'd be willing to go for an upgrade over that.
Probe away.
Not sure that was the best use of a probe, but there's got to be like one more big spike to keep this at poor.
Probe launched.
The other thing too, like I shouldn't be using probes for like small amounts when it's something like platinum, but I definitely should be willing to do some of those like medium stacks for iridium or pretty much any level of element 0.
Probe launched.
But in this case, I kind of feel like there's element, like, oh, nope, there's
Launching probe.
There's the batch I wasn't missing. I mostly just wanted to get it to depleted. So, let's explore the Normandy crash site. I'm probably going to have to come back for probes, though.
Detected an anomaly.
Lacara's crust is composed of carbon and water ice. With while low density, its large size allows it to retain a thick... You know what, before I do that, we're going to buy some upgrades, especially because that will be particularly useful for the upcoming mission. Well, I can shut up. Okay, so I can't get this one because I don't have iridium. I can get this one because I've got boatloads of platinum. Can't get that one because of element 0. Can get this one with all the platinum I have, but requires one more metagel. Okay. One more sniper rifle damage, one more assault rifle down. Okay, well, you know what? I'm probably going to regret this, but...
detected an anomaly.
Alkera's crust is composed of carbon and water ice. While low density, its large size allows it to retain a thick atmosphere of methane and ammonia. It is believed that if the Alkera had acquired a bit more mass when the Am Star system was formed, it would have formed a core of a second outer system gas giant. Alkera has 3 moons: Uluru, Wandjina, and Biame. Or Biame? I don't know. Aha.
Probe launched.
Probed.
Scans have found something.
Anomaly detected. Scans confirm the wreckage of the SSV Normandy on the planet's surface. No life signs or mechanical activity detected. Stable landing zone located amid the crash site. Is that the Mako? Locate suitable place for the Normandy monument and recover any sign of the 20 lost crew members. Oh my god, so they don't give you a refresh on the... You know, I don't think I've ever done this mission. This game's pretty brutal with its ammo. If this is... Yes, please. I was about to lose it if that ended the mission. Yeah, I'm almost certain I've never done this mission before. It's a really interesting one. It's kind of interesting too because so it's not as overt as Mass Effect 1 in terms of sort of setting up these barriers on what should sort of be open worlds. But I'm beginning to appreciate how good even Independence. So like I remember with Firewatch watching people play the game and being really unclear in terms of like where the invisible walls were. They did a really good job of selling this environment and sort of directing you towards places to go while simultaneously feeling that like in theory you could kind of go wherever you wanted. So it's kind of interesting to come back to this game, and I never really thought about the walls because, you know, I was used to playing games that essentially existed in boxy corridors like constantly. So it's interesting to go back to this and say it's like, oh wow, these worlds were actually a lot more restrictive than I remember them. I don't think this is a bad thing, by the way. but it's just so interesting. You think this mission came from a DLC? That would explain it then, Woman, because I believe if I played any DLC content, it would have been very early. You know, now that I think of it, I might have just played Mass Effect. So the first gaming computer I had, I've sort of alluded to this background. I don't know if I've ever been really explicit in terms of how I got back into gaming. So while I'm in a little bit of an idle point in the game. Ooh. This is a pretty neat mission. While I'm kind of doing this exploration, I'll maybe try and be a little more explicit about this background. So, I left home as quickly as I could, and I'm not from a bad upbringing or anything like that. I had a fairly loving home. It's certainly not to suggest that my relationship with my family is perfect or anything like that. I don't know if really anybody can say that, but I did not immediately leave home because I felt compelled to, or because I felt that I was in danger or had some source of misery or something like that. But I definitely have a very strong independent streak, and I knew that Woman says, you liked how Firewatch used canyons and force limitation line of sight in order to reduce the load on the game. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is one of the things that I really respect about Campo Santo. And incidentally, I've not played Firewatch. I own it, and I would like to play it. I think it would be a good one to stream. But I've not taken the opportunity yet. But yeah, I do have this independent streak, and I definitely felt that I would benefit from living on my own and sort of making my own way as early as I could. So pretty much, as soon as it was feasible, I left home, went to Vancouver, and ostensibly to sort of pursue a film career. I've been very flattered by some people. Say, oh, did you, were you an actor? I'm like, no, I am. I don't know if they're just saying that to be polite, but it's very flattering. But I worked in camera. So, obviously, I know people who left home at a much younger age than I did, but obviously to go not just from home, but to specifically go to Vancouver, which is fairly notorious for its high real estate prices. And obviously those real estate prices changed while I was living there. It's not the sort of thing that you can... I feel like I've just gone in a big circle. I probably need to focus a little bit more, but that's fine. It gives me a chance to tell a story while I'm doing all of this. I definitely have not been here. But yeah, so when you're at a fairly young age and heading out sort of on your own in a totally new city where you really don't have any kind of a support network. You tend not to, you can't take certain things for granted, basically. I did have a computer, but because I was pursuing film, I had a Mac, a Mac Tower. Which I know every time I mention, excuse me. I mention every time I'm an Apple user, 101 people, do not lose the opportunity to tell me I'm an idiot for using Apple computers. But worked for me, still does. Although clearly I'm not playing Mass Effect on an Apple computer. I'm not dogmatic about it. So this is one of the reasons why one of the last things... So there's two reasons for this. There was more contemporary stuff available when I had a PC I could regularly game on, but I was really into Counter-Strike, and it just seems to me like 1.6 was the thing you played. And I had no intentions of playing anything but. So obviously there was other stuff that was being released at the time, but I was pretty set on a... I'm just going to try and do the perimeter because I feel like I'm missing some really obvious spots for dog tags. I'm sorry, I'm yawning all over the place, so it's one of the reasons I'm interrupting the narrative. I love Counter-Strike, did a lot with it. I don't know if I was any good. I seemed to hold my own, but it's not like I played competitively or anything like that. And I don't even know if there was really a competitive scene. But I think I could play Halo on my Mac, I seem to recall. But I mean, Macs aren't really gaming computers, and that computer was never really intended to be a gaming computer. Unrecoverable data, AA hashtag pound SKA dash dash plus plus dash dash question mark slash 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 backslash 1 tilde exclamation mark pound open bracket, data recovered, close bracket. Spoke to the commander about this. I corrupt all these damned aliens aboard the Alliance's most advanced ship. I don't trust him, especially unrecoverable data, that damned Asari. And a Quarian. What does Shepard think this is, a zoo? Damn it, Presley. Unrecoverable data, Thack, data recovered with a Quarian. It seems she's on some kind of pilgrimage trying to improve the lot of her home ship. I can understand that. I would unrecoverable data, babysit my children or anything. But if she has to be on board, I suppose that's not too bad. Even Presley likes Tali. For a while now, I'm taking a look back at the entries of this journal. How blind I was at the time. Came onto this ship firmly believing humanity was on its own in the galaxy. Corrupt. Shepard brought all these aliens on board, and there's no way we could have accomplished what we did without them. I am proud to say Corrupt died for any member of this crew, regardless of what world they were born on. That's really nice. I actually like this because it makes Presley a hell of a lot more sympathetic. I actually feel bad to have lost him now, knowing that he had a change of heart. I found him quite unlikable in the base game, so it's nice that they gave him a little moment of redemption. I'm also very curious if that account changes based on I forgot if I have any more dog tags to pick. I have to have more dog tags to pick up, but I'm curious if that changes based on some of your decisions, because definitely the first game makes renegade choices. Oop. Shepard's lost N7 helmet was recovered. One thing I'm sorry, obviously I'm talking about memories of moving from home and that. One thing I really like about this level, it's just this meditative opportunity to reflect on the previous game. You get to see the wreckage, you get to see all the things that you remember from the game. The Mako's there. You pick up the helmet, you remember Presley. It's so interesting because you start with your weapon drawn, but it's so obvious that you don't need to have combat. You don't need to have people running around shooting at you to be able to be interested and to just sort of reflect in this moment. I wonder if it's just something about the design of this level that's making me sort of talk about my background. There was definitely something I could do there. Must have clipped through a wall or something like that. So yeah, anyways, I mean, it's not that I disliked gaming, it's just that I went out on my own and I had a very clear purpose for specifically being in the city that I moved to. And alright, I gotta count the number of dog tags. 7, okay, I've got 3 more, and I'm sure it's gonna be an adventure to try and find. Oh, maybe not. I still don't think of you that way, Caden. 2 more. Yeah, so there are actually some good Mac-only games, or at least they used to be Mac-only games. So there was a really good one by Ambrosia I think it was Ambrosia Software. It's called Uplink. It used to be my favorite hacking game, but there's been a couple of really good ones to come out since then. And then Zachtronics has obviously just made computer programming into a game. Like those games are, I'm not very good at them, but they're really impressive. I'm looking forward to Exapunks, but I haven't gotten through Space Chem, let alone like Shenzhen IO or TIS 100. I guess that's the other way around. I know they've got a card game which I haven't spent a lot of time in, but yeah. So Uplink was a good hacking fantasy. I guess I need to distinguish, because you know Zachtronics has made this as maybe not as close to the real deal as you can get, but like obviously it's a pretty hardcore approach to the subject. I've definitely been here before, but I kind of feel like going around the perimeter is... I'm going to go around the perimeter first just to make sure that I haven't missed anything obvious. And yeah, exactly, Sean Bean. And then once I do that, I don't know if I'm going to do sort of circles closing in, but I feel like it's sort of the best... It's the best first step that I have in terms of finding any obvious bits that I've missed. Plus, it gives me a chance to sort of talk about my gaming background. So, but yeah. So the main thing, it's not that I ever grew tired of gaming, but it's obvious that I moved where I did, and I needed to make sure that I kept things going while I established myself in a career and a passion. And I mean, I wound up, you know, when I was trying to get into the film industry, it was one of those times when the bottom fell out in the Vancouver film industry. There was, even if you were the best, you know, at what you did and you were a member of the union, there was just simply no work. You know, you could not work if you wanted to, because there was just simply none to be had. And to give you an idea too, like I wound up in some... It's really weird how these things kind of turn out in terms of the way that they shape you, because I had a music player and it broke. I don't mean to... It's really easy, I've found, to oversell financial stresses. I have definitely been at some points where I feel very precarious in my financial situation, and I have definitely had moments where I feel a lot of stress about it, and I feel I feel some degree of uncertainty in terms of how I'm going to make it all work out. But even living in a city without family, you know, and trying to establish myself in a creative field, I don't ever really think, I can't really say that I ever felt in a situation where I felt like homelessness was a real problem for me. I definitely went to bed hungry quite a bit. Maybe not quite a bit. That's maybe overselling it. You know, like but the biggest thing, like I know a lot of people, I think this is just something about online rhetoric. I really do feel like people sometimes try to sell up their like street cred. And I'd love to say, you know, in some ways I think it's kind of a failing, because obviously earlier on in this cast I was trying to talk about, you know, losing a job. This is one thing that's interesting. I've had very few situations where like my job has been involuntarily terminated. Film is the best I can say, and it's been because a show has been canceled. It's not because I've screwed up. And obviously that's not to imply that the people who lost their jobs at these game studios screwed up. You know, probably what they are experiencing is closer to a cancellation. But like that uncertainty is kind of a given inside of a film context. And I always had sort of a robust enough network to sort of have an idea about where the next gig would come from. Okay, so the perimeter was not the right way to go. Anyways, back to Vancouver life. So yeah, what I want to do is I don't want to, you know, I probably should. That was such a stupid use of that. Should probably just blow up these crates to make sure that there's nothing I'm missing. I'm determined to get these dog tags if it kills me. Hello, Last Geek Plays. How are you doing? Content creator is such a weird title to me still, because usually I just babble over. I've been running around like an idiot. I've had 2 fragile crates. All right, somebody just put a big dunce cap on me. Yes, I'm not huge on the term influencer myself. Okay, I don't think there's anything else for me to do on this mission, so I'll wrap up the... I mean, I might as well destroy the crate, right? But I mean, in one sense, influencer is kind of what people do, but I think one of the things is that I think influencer would be better distinguished. Like, I think you should actually demonstrate how you've influenced. Wait, there's 21 missing crew members? All right, fair enough. It seems like a marketing term that should not have gone out into the world. So I think it is useful to have a label for what they do. Oh, interesting. Apparently I didn't trigger that before. So I think the concept of influencer marketing, as much as I may find it slightly distasteful, I do think in terms of distinguishing it from other forms, it does have its utility. But with that in mind, I'm not, like, I think it's easy for someone like me to, like, if I would just run around saying, I'm an influencer, it's like, well, who do I really influence? Whereas I think I'm sort of on the same page as you. You prefer not to think of yourself as content, or to prefer to think of yourself as a content creator. You make things, you don't convince people to purchase things, right? So I think, I actually think the term influencer, or at least referring to influencer marketing, is a useful distinction for people who focus on PR campaigns, because it is distinguishing it from something like a television commercial or a radio ad. And so you are a content creator, and you don't necessarily see yourself as, selling a particular product. However, let's say you are really focused on playing Frozen Synapse 2, and you're really enthusiastic about it. You love sharing that game with people. While you may not necessarily consider yourself as an individual dedicated to the sale of that product, it is very helpful for Mode 7 Games to consider you as an influencer. And the reason for this would be that because you are such a fan of Frozen Synapse 2 and you show the game off in a good way, or thank you very much for that, host. Or you think of yourself, you attract people, or you show the game in a good light, or you help build a community around that game. Whether or not you intend to do so, you do actually have influence. You wind up shaping some of the experience of that game. And so at least from the point of view of discussing how people find this game, or how people interact with the game, I do think that's a useful distinction. But I do think, I would not self-apply the name influencer. Because as you say, I create content. It may not be great content, but I create it. I don't know. Monument has been placed at the last resting place of the SSV Normandy on Alcara, and the families of all missing crew members have been notified of their ultimate sacrifice. Shepard's lost N7 helmet was recovered. 200 experience, 3750 credits, 500 element 0, and a partridge in a pear tree. Yeah. And I also think it's a question of who's saying. So for instance, somebody like Sheriff Eli very clearly has been getting some contracts from existing games to specifically play their games, and he does a great job of it. So I think he would very credibly call himself an influencer, and I would be totally fine with that being self-applied. But I know some people who probably would not hesitate to use that description, but I kind of feel, well, you know what, it's up to them what they want to call themselves, really. I probably shouldn't be too aggressive about it, but I think I know where you're coming from on this for sure. Last Geek Plays. I just need to buy myself some more probes.
People at 1/2 capacity.
I know. Anyway, I never really did finish the Vancouver thing, but I guess the biggest thing about it. So, as I said, it's kind of funny how certain things you can never plan for, but they wind up being really interesting moments that have an effect on who you eventually become. So I had a music player that broke, and I was at a point where I couldn't. I was not in a position where I could just go and replace something like that. I might, a pair of headphones, inexpensive ones I could maybe replace, but you know, like if I lose a proper music player, like I'm not getting that thing back. Like I didn't really have the means. And so I wound up in desperation going to the library. And I actually just went to the philosophy section because it was something I was sort of interested in. I remember really liking The Prince, and I kind of read The Republic, but I didn't really appreciate it. So obviously, I mean, political philosophy, eventually going on to do political economy. I suppose, you know, all the elements were there. But yeah, I went to the library because I wanted to entertain myself. I loved it. Like it was like the thing I would do. Like I honestly didn't mind the fact that I didn't have music to listen to the whole time because I had a book, and I loved doing that. I still like reading, but even that, like, I regret that I don't have this obsession with like constantly reading the way that I did back then. And I think part of it is because I have so many distractions. And I'll admit, I miss that. And I feel like I need to reconnect with that, because the problem is I've got so many books now, and some of them I'm reading specifically to do for some streaming stuff. But yeah, I do tend to notice that a lot of the libraries I go to now are fairly noisy. But I don't mind that too much. I would like it if I could have a quiet room in a library, but it's not a deal breaker for me anymore. But yeah, that was actually one of the ways that, because, you know, obviously I didn't do any meaningful higher education while I was pursuing my film career. That's actually one of the things that kept me from becoming a dummy. But an old friend from high school, actually that's not true. Or was it? I'm trying to remember when I first got a gaming... Somebody gave me a gaming computer. They're basically moving out of town, and they didn't have any use for it. They didn't want to take along. So it wasn't a great machine, but it's better than what I had. I'm pretty sure I had Mass Effect. They had Mass Effect on that, and you know, again, because I'm used to Counter-Strike 1.6, everything looked amazing. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, there may have been some DLC on it, but I definitely did not do that Normandy mission for sure. And I didn't see the mercenary. So anyways, I hope that trip down memory lane wasn't too boring for you, but Eingana is a hot, beautiful, and deadly world covered with the debris of ancient starships. Approximately 127,000 years ago, a series of battles were fought over it by two organic species, the Toyhan and the Inusanon. Though no records of the conflict remain, most historians agree that both races wanted to colonize Eingana, and neither were willing to share. The two lost hundreds of ships in a series of battles over Eingana and its moon, Baraya, and many of these were eventually pulled in by the planet's gravity well. The Mass Effect drive cores of these ships broke apart, dumping refined element zero over large stretches of landscape. This poisoned the environment, and a wave of extinctions followed. Many of the animal species that remained showed a tendency to develop biotic powers. As the ecology of Eingana is energetic and aggressive, this makes colonization a deadly peril. I mean, it's promising element zero.
Probe launched. Launching probe. Launching probe.
So here's one for you, chat. I mean, you don't... Obviously, my job is to try and be as entertaining as I can. I don't know if I'm really succeeding in that, but... What's the last book you've read? That's fine if you don't read books. If you don't read books, just say, I wish I read more. But
Probe launched.
either what's the last book you read?
Projects. Element Zero is used for bioamp and omni-tool upgrades, which allow squad members who have biotic and tech powers to be much more effective.
Or alternatively, if you don't want to say the last book that you read, what's the last book that like really stood out to you?
Probe away.
The Society of S. I've not even heard of that one. Eyes of Sin. Would you care to tell the class what it's about?
Probe launched.
Sean Bean, last book was called Picking Up the Pieces. Okay. Same question to you. So this shows you how bad I am with books. I've not heard of either of those, so I would love it if you good people can pitch me on it. It's by a forensic psychologist. All right. Is it a work of nonfiction? Is it like a memoir? Is it a sort of a handbook or a procedural?
Probe away. Probe launched.
Obviously, I can talk about what I've been reading too, but I don't want it to be entirely about me. Detailing his career and notable cases. Okay. I mean, it seems... I don't know a ton about forensic psychology, but that strikes me as the sort of thing that would be fascinating to read. He introduced profiling to high-profile... Oh, cool. And Eyes of Sin says, it's a coming-of-age book about a young girl coming to terms with being a vampire. It's hardly a vampire novel, though. I don't think the word is even used. So did you get a chance to see Nighthawks? And, okay, so Sean Bean recommends Picking Up the Pieces. Oh god, I didn't even notice these two. I'm gonna have to get more probes. Korora. Korora is essentially a great rock in space, tidally locked to Amada. Its only noticeable feature is a chain of craters stitching across the northern hemisphere, thought to be the result of impacts by a swarm of meteors. Korora's low density suggests it contains no mineral wealth beyond the common light metals. It maintains a tenuous atmosphere of krypton and xenon. By the way, guys, I should, just maybe to manage expectations here, I probably only have about 18 more minutes of casting, so it's pretty unlikely I'm going to do another mission. This is definitely a good time for like an AMA or a discussion or something like that, if you guys really like that level of interaction, or even if you just want to hear the conversation. I don't mind like riffing off stuff on my own, but I'm happy to open up the floor as well. But I feel like just taking a look at what the time is and taking a look at realistically what I'm going to be spending in the game, if you are not one for the scanning and the mineral resources, it is very unlikely that I will do another mission tonight. So, which is fine. That'll just give us something to basically crash into. I think the way I'm going to do Mass Effect 2 is... if I have a system where I don't have any missions to do, but I can like collect resources, I might just leave the scanning and stuff like that for in between casts. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to do any of it on cast, but I feel like the neighboring systems to the Mass Effect relay, there's no real reason for me to do that on stream unless I want to do these, unless I want to do these like AMA sessions or something like that. But yeah, with that in mind, I don't want to give the impression that there's going to be like, I think if you guys come in watching this and you sit for 20 minutes and then it's like, all right guys, thanks for watching. Obviously there's a lot of people who really like Mass Effect, and I know the scanning's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I'd love it if you hang out, and we'll obviously host someone at the end of the night. So, but yeah, so I think you might quite like Nighthawks with that in mind, Sin, just based on that book. I take it the Society of S is also something that you would recommend? Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to get more probes. I shouldn't be wasting them on this minor stuff.
Probe launched.
I'll see if I can find like another big...
Probe launched.
I'll work with it.
Launching probe.
I mean, I'll just come back with a bunch of... Oops. Just come back with a bunch of probes to mine the heck out of this one. It's a good read. It's because I really can't pass up an opportunity to talk about myself. So yeah, like the idea here would be probably on my own time I'll check out these other systems. Tales of Earthsea. I think you've mentioned that one before. But I needed to get some new USB chargers for my phone. Like, you know, those USB compact or USB-C. And I mean, Amazon just must make dump trucks of money this way, but you know, I'm just kind of on the border of the good shipping rate. So I thought, okay, well, what's another thing I'm sort of looking for? Especially, I got a bit of a tax return, and most of that's already accounted for. I'm really just paying off a lot of debt with that. But you know, it's when you come into a little cash, it doesn't hurt to make sure that you... I think the thing that I kind of like is that as long as it's not too much, like a book is not going to break the bank for me. I'm lucky in that regard. So I thought, okay, well, I had my eye on this. I actually got it from the library, but as it happens, I needed to return it before I made significant progress. But I was very surprised at how quickly it came in. So there'd been a used book that I ordered months ago, but it was coming from a very remote place, and they spent the least they possibly could on shipping. So I got Foundations of Economic Analysis by Paul Samuelson, which is an incredible book if you have a very narrow set of interests. It is probably the book that is most responsible for turning economics into this extremely math-driven discipline. And it's very interesting because Samuelson in his introduction makes references to classical works and great literature as well as great science. So what's very interesting is to see a man of very refined tastes and very broad learning in the book that seems to... Also, one of my profs is mentioned in it, which is really interesting. It's really interesting to see how economics seems to have sort of taken on this view of this impenetrable discipline, with basically just obsessed with masturbation. And the fact of the matter is, the person who really cracked open that language and showed its utility for economic analysis clearly was not like that. He was somebody who really did have a good understanding of other subjects. But I think it turns out that way. Usually the really path-breaking people just seem to be these people who are really intellectually curious across all dimensions. And then there's actually, I'm ashamed to admit, I've got 4 volumes of the collected papers of Paul Samuelson propping up my monitor, but I'll read Foundations first. But yeah, so that kind of came in unexpectedly. But in order to balance out the shipping costs, I got a book called The Marshall Plan. Unfortunately, I don't remember the author's name, but if you're okay with nonfiction, it's a book that came out this month. It's really interesting. George Marshall's a fascinating figure in history. Very admirable person, at least as far as I've been able to see. And to understand the context of the Marshall Plan and how it came about, I find it a fairly compelling account, in addition to being it's interesting history. It seems to be good research. It has a good economic understanding. The guy who wrote it's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. I believe he is an economic analysis, or sorry, he's an he does economic analysis at the Council of Foreign Relations. But even if you're not like an econ nerd like me, I think it's a good description of a fairly significant historical program, and it does a very good job of sort of articulating the moment where people found themselves inside of it. And so the first little glimpse I got of it was enough to make me pick it up. So that made me very happy to get that. Orbiting closest to the F-class star of Amda, Takan is a blistering, sun-blasted hell. Neither its carbon dioxide atmosphere nor its weak magnetic field provides any protection from the star's harsh radiation. Fortunately, Takan has few significant resources, and is only notable for an unusual purple desert in the southern hemisphere, thought to be the result of eroded spessartite. Alright, moderate, so we may not be spending too much time here, but I'll admit though, it's occurred to me that every year since school, since I've graduated, every September I have wound up buying one textbook. I normally save money by buying, most textbooks, and especially very important ones. So, in PhD programs, if you do econometrics, there's a handful of textbooks that you'll probably use. I don't really see Davidson and McKinnon in too many PhD ones. Although it's a good textbook. There's some really good stuff in that. I like Davidson and McKinnon quite a bit. If you're doing time series, which just seems to be, I find I'm not good at time series, but it seems to be getting just lots of cool stuff. But Hamilton's time series book is probably a big one, especially for a lot of advanced work. Wooldridge, Papa Wooldridge. I think it's actually a really advanced, but I know there are PhD programs that assign it, but I actually wouldn't consider it for first year PhD. That definitely seems to be one that's more for advanced topics. But the ones that really sort of seem to be common are either Green, which is just a reference book. It seems to have everything in it, and it's updated. There was a new one that came out last year, I think. And Hayashi. There seem to be some. Yeah, we'll go for it because I spot it. Now I don't have international editions of all of them, but for the really big ones, essentially there are low cost. So the problem is textbooks cost so much, and it's if you're in a developing if you're in a developing country and you're trying to make your way in the world, you're trying to get an education, finding out that there's some $300 textbook between you and understanding the subject that you're studying. Yuan Oak, or Ake, I don't know. Yuan Prime is a stony planet encased in ice under a methane-heavy sky, named for the Yuan Consortium, the Batarian manufacturing firm that financed its exploration. Yuan Oak's crust provides much of the boron allotropes used in Omnigel throughout the Terminus systems. The area has naturally become a haven for pirates who attempt to steal the refined gel or its ingredients as soon as the cargo ships leave the atmosphere. But yeah, so basically most Western students find textbooks unaffordable. But yeah, like if you've got a $300 textbook, 300 US, and you're in, you're in Sri Lanka or something like that, trying to, go to school and study, it's really hard to turn around and say, okay, yeah, you, in addition to everything that you've given up to be able to attend this school, you now need to spend an obscene amount of money for this source of knowledge. Obviously, you do not want to perpetuate an inequality through through the cost of this textbook. More importantly, too, there is something to be said for price discrimination, right? Like the willingness to pay of, say, a bit. So, like, if you take a look at a textbook, let's think about statistics. Now, statistics don't change depending on what discipline you're doing. You might have some methods that are similar to others, but ordinary least squares is the same if you're doing it for business or if you're doing it for chemistry. The estimation is the same. But if you get a business statistics textbook, that's probably going to be $230. If you get just a generic statistics textbook, 130. It's silly how much more something with business. But on the other hand, right, so many business programs, are a gateway to a fairly lucrative career, and that's why these publishers charge more for it. So the thing that they don't want to wind up doing with some of these pricing schemes is basically saying okay, well, people from these have-not countries face yet another barrier to their education because we've priced them out of education. Nobody wants to do that. Now, I should probably feel bad for the way that I do this, but given the fact that located within the life zone of a dimming orange sun, Vitar would be habitable except for its carbon dioxide atmosphere and an icy surface that kills most oxygen-producing bacteria. Nonetheless, mercenary companies and slavers have numerous strongholds on the planet, out of reach of galactic authority. Travel advisory: a statistically significant number of distress signals have originated within the 1 million kilometer mark of Vitar. Citizen travel is not advised.
Probe away. Launching probe.
Yeah, so basically it's printed on, the paper that it's printed on is not as good. But there will be textbooks which have the same content, less attractive binding, paper, bit soft cover, but it does, in these developing markets,
Used half our fuel.
it does let people learn from the same textbooks that you and I would. Now, you are not supposed to resell them in other regions, but that doesn't stop people from doing that. So I go on a couple of websites, and I guess technically what I'm doing is denying some other student from being able to buy that, but there doesn't seem to be any shortage of them. And for whatever reason, this place is able to sell it to Canada. So every September I've kind of wound up getting, it's a little bit like school for me, actually. In school, if it was so I remember there was a logic class that I took, it was a philosophy class, which was critical thinking or something like that. And it wasn't a cheap textbook, but it wasn't the most expensive I've gotten. But it's what are the common logical fallacies? Read this passage. What do you think about the argument that it made? Just really basic stuff. Didn't really give me anything that stuck with me for that. It was mandatory for the course, so, you know, I got it. But that was the sort of thing that I sold back to the bookstore afterwards at a price much lower than what I paid for it, but that's kind of how this stuff works. But I noticed most of my math and my econ textbooks I kept. I actually refer to the econ stuff a lot, but that's not surprising. I mean, I am a researcher, so I'm not as... So one thing I do like is a lot of profs now are writing their own, like, lecture notes. And there are also some profs who are either using, like, preprints of books. So, like, Martin Uraib and I think it's Stephanie Schmidt-Grob. I might have the name wrong, but they had a pretty good... like international macro, like international trade and open economy macroeconomics textbook, and they were working on that a long time. And while they were working on it, the full textbook was available for free online. Now it's done. Now it's published, so you can't get it anymore. You need to pay for it. But I remember some profs were using, you know, my international trade profs would usually wind up using that book. It's a good one, like it's a really solid textbook. So if you had to get it for a class, I think it would be worth buying. Rocky planet with a crushing atmosphere. Sator has been scanned from orbit, but largely left unexplored due to its sweltering conditions. Its atmosphere contains nitrogen, but also an unusually high percentage of ethane, which can coalesce in pockets near the surface. The Illumia heavy crust of the planet can reach glowing hot temperatures during the daytime, reaching the ethane's auto-ignition temperature and creating pockets of flame across the landscape. For this reason, extravehicular activities are discouraged on Sator, and no company has been willing to invest in exploration. But we will exploit it for resources right now. So I think profs are getting a little bit more conscious about how prohibitive textbooks are. A lot of universities will actually have a copy of the textbook available in the library. I'm surprised students don't take advantage of that more often, because personally I think it's way too easy to read a textbook and then turn on Twitch or, you know, or to watch a YouTube video or something like that, or basically do anything other than study. It's one of the biggest problems that I've had in terms of being able to, like, really focus and get the work done. But for my own part, because I mean, I did get like a couple of scholarships, and I built up some worldly resources when going to school. I still have debt for it, but it's not as bad as it could. The debt is mostly just because of living costs in Vancouver, not the education. But once I kind of learned, like, the critical thinking textbook. Critical thinking is a really good skill to have, but I'm not sure that textbook really taught me anything that I didn't know otherwise. Some anthologies of good, some of my ethics textbooks I really liked, because they had these really good compilations of writings which, I couldn't really get the collection of things that were there for a better price. I could have individually bought some of those works, but the collection of those works would have been more than just getting the compilation. But honestly, like anything math, anything stats, I bought, I kept, and 100% thought it was worth it. Because it's not like math changes, right? Like, if you learn a linear algebra 20 years ago, sure, maybe like the pedagogy is different. Maybe people will teach it in a slightly different way, and that will somehow be better, or maybe a little bit more clear. But the relationships are this. It's not like, Pythagoras' theorem is still true, even though it's very old. So, math textbooks, stats textbooks tend to be ones that age relatively well. Alright, this will be the last planet I explore, and then you guys don't need to listen to my opinions on everything for the rest of the night. We lost another follower, so I think people are getting really fed up with me getting really fed up with me voicing opinions like this. Punished with UV and gamma radiation from the Class F star it orbits, Utah is no one's first choice for a planet to land on. Covered in seawater, Utah has a hydrosphere and an ozone similar to Earth's, but that simply isn't enough to ward off the life-killing radiation. Its nitrogen-rich, oxygen-poor atmosphere goes unchanged by the few proteins that have managed to form in the ocean depths. Utah, however, has served as a way station for slaves. Jason Man, first 007, thank you for taking pity on me, and we've netted out the difference. Thank you very much for that. Utah has served as way station for slaves escaping their Batarian masters. What little land it has is tectonically stable, and its considerable radiation belt and electrical storms grant cover from many common types of sensors. Fleeing ships typically hide on Utah long enough to discharge their drive cores and stock up on deuterium before trying to make it to the cluster's mass relay. Obviously, I could have left a lot of this stuff for off-cast, but I don't know. Usually, if you guys are kind of curious how I make these decisions, like if there's chat interactivity, like if people are sort of even occasionally replying or something like that, I usually tend to try and like at least finish the thought. I realize that talking about the cost of textbooks is maybe not everyone's idea of what Twitch should be about. But I don't know, as long as there's, you know, this is something like this sort of strikes me a little bit like playing Frozen Synapse, which has got a really nice soundtrack to it, and I think, you know, that one I tend to be focusing on the combat a little bit more, but if I'm in a position where I'm sort of waiting for something to happen, you know, being able to talk about what's going on in life or just a, you know, a general topic, basically just having a chat, as long as there's a little bit of interaction on that, I'm okay. I'm okay carrying it on. And usually what I'll do is I'll at least finish the thought before calling it a night. So, you know, this particular system, sure, I could have done on my own time. Oh, I gotta buy some probes. This might be a good place to call it. But yeah, I mean, so long as there's a little bit of a pulse in terms of chat, or I just generally don't think that people are like completely offended by the lack of progress that I'm making. I usually kind of run with it.
Fuel reserves at 50%.
Although with that, I might, like, obviously I don't think this is particularly helpful for let's say people watching on like YouTube or something like that. But one of the reasons I do that is because I sort of know that people don't always necessarily watch for I don't think people always watch for... Oops, I went the wrong way. Oh yeah, Sean B, and that's the big thing. Like, my view has always been that it's my job to entertain. And as long as people dig the tangents, I'll keep doing them. And it's actually not my expectation that people contribute during the tangents, because that needs to be, that needs to be my thing. But this is a great example where, like, this is going to be one less planet that I need to explore on my own time, which means I'm going to be able to get more. So the drawback, of course, is that if I want to minimize the number of planets that I'm exploring on cast, that means I give up that time for something else, and that could be time that I spend recording an Elder Scrolls playthrough or something like that. So obviously, I'm not going to make this a mainstream feature on streams. Like, it's not going to be 3 hours of me scanning for minerals in Mass Effect every time I do Mass Effect. But something like this is not a bad way to close out the evening, just because it gives me a chance to unwind, tell a couple of anecdotes. And I know a lot of people really like putting this on in the background, and either they're doing some other activity or they like the sounds. This works really well for that kind of format because, if you just listen to that music, you hear that, and you've got some guy who's maybe a little too excited about mathematics going on about, when he used to work in the movies, or what it meant to, you know, to lose a music player and then wind up going to the library instead, and how that wound up shaping the... Should probably refill.
Only half our fuel remains.
You know, this is a really well... this particular part of the game is really well suited to those kinds of conversations and interactions, just because it's very relaxing. And I would never say I'm an ASMR style caster, but I know some of you really like it when I talk in the microphone this way. So yeah, it's I don't think it's a bad way, especially because it's so late here. It's not a bad way to spend the time. Anyways, I will not scan this planet. I am going to call it a night, but thank you everybody for watching. It's actually... Oh, now we gained 1 and we lost 2, so... You know, we used to be 6 people away from... We used to be 6 people away from the 2000... 2000... what was it? Whatever you call it, the 2000 follower stream. Maybe we'll get there before the end of I was really hoping we would get there before the end of the year, but I'm not going to throw a tantrum if we don't. It's obviously I'd rather people who like the stuff connect with it. If it's not your thing anymore, it's no hard feelings. But it's rather late. And I'm gone a little over time, so thank you everybody for hanging out. Rough plans for the oncoming week. Pretty unlikely that I'll do a weekend cast. I try to do them. It's less likely that I do them now, seeing as I'm recording VOD content as well. So I'm a lot more likely to want to make sure that I can do something for VODs rather than do a live broadcast. Monday we'll start Crusader Kings 2. I should probably have the Mass Effect music on in the background. So Monday we'll start Crusader Kings 2. Sometime next week I'd like to do Frozen Synapse 2 again, so that might be a good Wednesday one. And I'm not sure if I want to do XCOM 2 or Frozen Synapse 2. So the main rotation that I've got right now is Mass Effect 2, Crusader Kings 2, XCOM 2, Frozen Synapse 2. But we'll see. We'll see where this all goes. I definitely want to put some more time into Frozen Synapse 2, but I also want to put more time into XCOM 2, and I really like Mass Effect 2. And the intention really is to put more, you know, this one was more cleaning up some side missions and such. I do want to make sure I get a good plot one in, so I might shelve Mass Effect 2 for next week just so I can catch up on some of the other things. If I do Mass Effect 2, I think we're going to make a hard push to at least get one good story in, because I know the Jack mission's pretty exciting, and I can't remember who the Warlord is, but yeah, I know there's some good missions coming up, so that should be fun to do. But for sure, Crusader Kings 2, I really want to get back to XCOM 2, because we had that great session where we wound up taking down the Chosen, and then we never went back to it. Not by design, just other stuff turned out. And again, Mode 7 was really good to give me a copy of Frozen Synapse 2, so I'd like to make sure that I do right by covering it properly. But as always, if you want to know what's coming up, that'll be on Twitter. If you want to know kind of where things are heading, or you know, any details on it, usually it's either Twitter or the Discord. And as always, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there'll be something there, unless it's the third Wednesday for the Dirty Rectangles local meetup. Or, of course, if a tornado hits the city. It turns out there were multiple tornadoes hit the city. But you can't really predict that. So let's find somebody to host, and then I can shut up and you can move on. It's been a while since I've hosted Kilgore Trout, so he's doing Heretic. I'm probably not going to be hanging out for too long because it's 2 in the morning and I should probably go to bed. Kintara666, I hope you're not just showing up. If you are, I apologize. I am tired and I need to go. I need to go to bed. But thank you. And of course, if you've been hanging out the whole time and I haven't realized it, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for doing so. But anyways, guys, we will host Kilgore Trout currently playing Heretic. He might be on his way to doing box hype and movie hype. I'll try to hang out as long as I can, but I do need to get some sleep. So I will see you Monday for Crusader Kings 2, Elder Scrolls on Tuesday, Vodcast Wednesday and Friday, XCOM 2, Mass Effect 2, or Frozen Synapse 2, and we'll know. Caught the last half hour. Oh, so you didn't get to see any real gameplay. You just got to hear me shout my opinions about things. All right. Anyways, one last thing. As always, let's say thank you to the many people hosting me. So Rambler146, Malicide, Yorkshire Bastard, Flofi, Ottawa Streamers, Amber Ray, Mingo Duck, Miss Ariella, Starbright Knight, Octavian Zero, thank you, Eyes of Sin, Last Geek Plays, Inferno Fowler, Custom Games, Kaylee Cakes, The Sleepbringer, Mr. Franz, Maka Angzir, Ulster Fighter, Nubasaur 42, Freighter 5, and Unknown Brigade, all bringing in people with those hosts. So thank you for that. Have a great time in Kilgores, and we will see you Monday.